Hello, hello. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Lori.
Hello, everybody. Sorry we're late. We're just a little bit late. Technical difficulty.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we're a few minutes late. Sorry about that. But yeah, how are you today? How's your day?
good. Really good.
Yeah.
I come
Oh,
off a
good.
long Easter break.
Good.
I had 10 days off.
Yeah, that's nice.
It,
Yeah, I'm
it
glad
was
you got that
decent.
time off. That's really good. Yeah,
It
that's
was nice.
nice. Especially
I could have
Easter is
took
such a
the
nice
rest of
time to
this
be.
week off. I could have took the rest of
What's
this
that?
week off and been super happy.
Oh,
But it
seriously, I
was
bet.
nice to be
I
back.
believe it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least you got a break, because um, Easter's a great time for a lot of people to spend time with their kids and their grandkids and with their families, and that's great. I think that's nice. You got some time off. Pretty soon you'll be off for the summer, pretty
I
much.
can't
So,
wait.
you know, yeah, you'll be like,
I know.
it's summertime.
I love working with the
Yeah, yeah,
kids, but after 9 months, it's like you just need a little break. Like they made
that's it.
summers especially just for people like when you work with children because it's like I just can't wait to have a couple
Hmm.
weeks off. Actually, I'll have three
Yeah,
months off.
yeah. Well, you put in a lot. Like it's not like you just show up to your job and you get to sit behind a desk, and even if it was data entry or something and you're just working, it's totally different when you're engaging with when you're the creative mastermind and the operational director of this program and all this stuff. Yeah, I'm sure it keeps you pretty busy,
It
and
does.
so it's when it's not just like you can go in there and just sit and just have somebody else watch the children. I mean, you're literally involved in everything, hands
Hmm.
on, working, trying to provide this great experience for them. And so, I can imagine that you're probably pretty tired by now. And I think you're doing great. You look
Thank you.
good. You're still
Thank you.
holding in there. You're still holding in there. You don't look any worse for wear, but still, it's a lot. I can imagine that once summer comes, you're going to be really glad to get a break. Yeah,
Yeah, I love working
yeah.
with the
Me, I'm on a
kids.
permanent break. So. What's that?
And I said I love working with the kids, but sometimes you just
Oh yeah,
you need a break. And a lot of people, they think, oh, educators, they have it easy. Well, you have 25 and 30 kids a day for 9 months out of
yeah.
the year, and you see how you are. You need that little bit
That's
of
right.
a break, some peace.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. My sister-in-law was a high school teacher, and she taught language arts and also art. So
Oh, nice.
I think she taught uh, like English, language arts, reading, stuff like that, and art. So she loved her job, but man, when summer
Hmm.
came, she was very happy about it.
Yeah,
She was
same.
she was a committed teacher. Yeah, she loved it. She loved what she did. So, but I know she used to talk about like, that break was just so essential for her, so she could like regain, first of all, just rest, and then regain herself. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's a lot of work being a teacher and or a
Mhm.
program director or whatever, working with kids. Oh yeah, totally. So just a few more weeks and you'll be fine. I'm just laughing because I'm off like permanently now. I'm on a bit of a retirement situation now. So, which is weird. I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't at all prepared for this. It's not like working at a company for like, 40 years and you're going to retire and the date. This was an unexpected situation and I just
Yeah.
wasn't ready for it. And I mean, God said I was ready for it, but I'm like, really, Lord? I'm like, I mean, for anybody watching, I mean, I'm not shy. I mean, I talk about the fact that I'm very much a Christian. I follow the Lord
Hmm.
Jesus Christ,
Hmm.
and I believe in God, and I don't
Me
have any
too.
problem talking about it. Um, so if you don't, that's no problem. For the people that are listening. But
Hmm.
I was just like sitting there going, "Well, God, I guess this is what you want for me." Okay, I thought I was going to be working for a few more years, and so it was a big kind of a surprise to me that this is it. So I was
Hmm.
thinking about doing early retirement at 60, but I was planning on working for the last few years. So I was planning on
Yeah.
not being off for the last 2 or 3 years. So that was the shock. Now I'm almost 60 and going to apply for my early retirement. So, that's kind of normal. That's what I actually was planning on doing. But I wanted to work for the last 3 years and it wasn't there. So I've been
Yeah.
off now for a while. And, so and I'm tired, so I can't imagine how tired you are, and I know like you're still a little younger than me. But it does get tiring, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But if it's a passion and you love it, then of course it's good, right? Like
I love my job.
it's not just a job. Yeah, it's not just a job.
No.
It's you're passionate about it. I know that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only person
So
that gets up and happy about going to work, because most people, they complain, they hate going to work. I get up and I'm like, oh, I got to be at work
that's
in an
it.
hour. And I'm real excited. Most people's
I
like, I
know
hate my
you're
job.
like you're into it. Well, I mean,
Hmm.
some jobs really suck, no doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
especially if you have a manager that is like I'm talking about for anybody who's listening out here in the world of people out here that might be catching our show. I've had some terrible bosses. I've also had some really great bosses. So I've had a
Mhm.
mix. And I mean, some of my bosses were awesome, so awesome. It doesn't mean like, oh, they just gave me everything I wanted and
Oh,
they were
no.
just pushovers or anything. But they were good to me, in many aspects. I've had lots of good bosses, but I've also had some real, I want to say, nasty, nasty bosses that
Hmm.
I literally turned into the government. I literally reported them to the government, federal government.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm like, you're not gonna pull that shit with me. I'm like, you didn't think you were like gonna get away with that, did you? Without
Hmm.
somebody reporting it? Because I'm like the person that reports shit. I'm not the one sitting back going, oh, I'll let that slide. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I wrote books, narked out my parents. You know what I'm saying? So, and so, yeah, what do they think they're going to get away with that crap? No. So, I mean, I did. I reported several bosses to the federal government. Yeah. I didn't mind doing it. I didn't mind at all because I thought for future reference, if this is a pattern and they mistreat employees and it's a habit and that's what they do, eventually the government will nab them. They'll get
Yeah.
on them for that. So maybe even a class action suit because I wanted my name. I wanted to be able to be available for a class action suit just in case there was one. For mistreatment. I mean, I don't tolerate that for nothing. So
No.
yeah, I mean, some jobs are crap. Some,
I've always had
it's
pretty incredible bosses. I,
yeah, that's
Everyone I've ever
nice.
worked for has been really nice and decent. I know, when I first started at this job, I had a supervisor and she had left and I got a new one. Well, then a year later, the first supervisor that I had, she come back, and they were both really
Oh yeah,
super nice. And then years ago, like when I worked in nursing, everybody there, they were pretty cool and they were easy to work with. So,
yeah, that's good when you have good bosses. That's the thing.
yeah.
Like it's not hard to go to work when you have people that support you and give you the tools that you need so that you can do your job and then let you run with it.
Hmm.
And those are always the best kind of jobs. I worked at a bank. I won't name names or anything, but the one bank I worked at, the boss was like that, and I really admired her for that. And I literally told her that when she was leaving, and she did move on. She went on to be the executive, like the CEO or something, some
Hmm.
big thing of the Calgary emergency services for
Oh, wow.
police, ambulance, fire, and that's a big, big outfit here in Calgary because Calgary is massive. It's
Hmm.
not like New York City, but it's big. And she went to manage that as the top dog. So
Oh,
she's really
wow.
good. That woman was really good at what she did, and she just really knew what she was doing. And she was running this big, huge um, administration portion of the bank. So not the tellers. Like I've never been a bank teller. It just didn't interest me. I always worked back office banking, back office, right?
Hmm.
So behind the scenes banking, right? So I really liked that woman. She was so good. I mean, she was not like not a pushover, but she
Mm-hmm.
just gave everybody the tools and was like, you guys are good at what you do. Here's the
Yeah.
tools and go have a great time. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody loved their jobs there. Yeah, they
Yeah.
closed that department down. I forget when it was, 2012, I think 2012, 2012 or something, 2013. So I could have gone on and to another branch, but I didn't really want to at that point because Cecil's health was kind of going downhill. So I didn't stay with them. But I'll never. That boss had already gone. So um, and it was just a good experience. But I mean, some of the bosses I've had have been great. Yeah. So then you don't
Mm-hmm.
mind going to work. That's the
No.
thing. I mean, I was not, like I said, I wasn't even looking to retire, and the job situation in many places is not looking very good. There's still jobs here in Calgary, but they're only hiring. They set the threshold, and their threshold is like nobody nobody over 30. So if
Yeah.
you're over 30, they're not even going to look at you. I mean, even if you manage to get an interview, because they don't know your age, they kind of try to guess by your resume, but they don't really know. You know what I mean? They don't have all
Mm-hmm.
your information. So, sometimes I'd get an interview and they would just look at me and go like that. And I'm like, excuse me. I'm like, look, I've got
Yeah.
skills, bud. Maybe there's a lot of people out here that are that have more updated skills than I do, but I could update like that because I'm smart. I'm not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm like, whatever, that's fine. But what it just showed me was that God wanted to give me this time off,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to be okay with it. It's
Yep.
funny when you look back, when we don't talk, like Don and I don't make these, Christian shows.
No.
Sometimes I don't like talking about this a little bit, because people, if, maybe some people don't realize this, that sometimes things in your life happen and you don't exactly know why. And you're like, why, God? These questions
Yeah.
arise and you're like trying to figure it out. And you're like, I don't understand. I just wanted to keep working. Most people are trying to get out of work. They're trying to
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to work. They're trying to be home. They're trying to be on welfare. They're trying to be wherever. They don't want to work. A lot of people, they don't care. They're just like, I don't want to
No.
work.
No.
They'll do whatever they have to so they don't have to work. And I'm like sitting there knocking on doors going, I want to work. Hello, I'm here. I want to work. I want to work. I want to work. And I can't find a job. And I was like really frustrated because there's all these other people that are just like, they don't want to work. And I'm like,
No.
well, this just doesn't seem fair. You know what I mean? So I was just waiting, for an answer from God. And then, um, this building where I'm at now, this is God's answer for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a great retirement spot. And I'm just like, this is great. I'm really thankful
Me
to be
too.
here where I'm at. Yeah.
I'm
So
thankful.
God knows what we need.
Yeah. God
Yeah.
knows. I always say God has a
Yeah, he
plan for
does.
you. And even though it doesn't meet your plans, his plan is the ultimate plan.
That's
So,
right. Yes,
you know,
sometimes we don't know. We think that we're doing the right thing. Like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this, Lord, because we think that's the way we're supposed to keep going, and it's like, but then he shuts the door on that.
mm-hmm.
And no matter how hard you try pounding on that door, it's shut because he shut it.
It's right.
And it's kind of like, okay, then I have
Well,
to be okay with this. Yeah.
I always say to people, God saw the beginning from the end. And a lot of people don't understand. He already knows what you're going to do. He knows what you're going to be. He knows how your life's going to end up. A lot of people, they
Yeah.
get offended when you say that, but I really truly I believe that, because there's been so many things that happened to me in my life, and there's times I think, how am I ever going to get through this, or what are we going to do, or whatever, and it just seems like there's always a way, or there's always a plan that I don't ever see coming, but it just happens. And
Yeah.
like I said, I believe God has a plan for everyone. I really do.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's right. So, yeah. So I'm kind of, you know, I'm sort of retired over here. So that's what we started talking about here tonight, retirement. I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm just retired. But we stay busy, like, I mean, you're still working. And
Hmm.
I mean, that's great. That's great that you can still work, you know what I mean? Um, but I'm still busy. Like, I'm still busy. I'm probably just as busy almost really as I
Hmm.
was when I was working. Like my
You
schedule
always
is pretty
are.
full.
But you
I
always
know.
are.
I always
I've
stay
had
really busy.
friends, yeah, I've had friends retire, and those friends are like, I'm busier now than I was when I was working because now I'm volunteering or doing all this stuff. And it's like you're always busy. And
Yeah.
I'm one of those
Yeah.
people,
So
I
it's
don't
not
like to
over.
slow down. Yeah, I don't like to slow down. I don't like to stop. If I'm doing something I enjoy, I'm gonna do it. Um, so I get it. I want to work for probably another 5 to 7 years. I want to try to hold out to 60 or 62. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know. I'd like to be in home because when I was in that accident and I hurt my shoulder, I was off for 5 years, and I kind of got really used to being home. But I'll tell you what, I was so bored. And then it was
Yeah.
like when I went back to
It's good
work,
to
it
be
was
able to
like,
be out
oh
and about
yeah,
doing something. Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Because otherwise it gets really stale quick.
it
Like,
does.
I have to stay pretty motivated because my day is up to me. There's no clock. There's literally nobody telling me when to get up. There's nobody telling me when to go to bed.
Exactly.
Um, I can get up anytime I want to. I don't have to get up. I don't have to like go to bed early so that I can go to work tomorrow or something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and it's kind of like I've always been one of these people that likes to stay uh, organized. Like I have to
Hmm.
have a plan for my day. I don't do well if I don't have a plan. I'll
Same.
completely waste the day and get absolutely nothing done if I don't have some sort of a plan. Um, then just nothing will happen, and I'll probably eat a tub of ice cream, put on 5 pounds, and sit in front of the YouTube and watch all these crazy shows all day, and just have fun. And that's okay for some people. I'm not running it down because for some people that's what they love. And if you're one of those people and you're listening, that's totally okay because I'm not running it down. All I'm saying is it's just not for me.
Yeah.
Like I go a little bit stir crazy after a while. Like yeah, I have to have little projects to do. So, I'm trying to
Hmm.
learn how to play guitar. I've been trying for years. Cecil passed away. I was getting pretty good when just before Cecil passed away. I was actually making progress. But when he passed away, I was so depressed I really couldn't play. Really, I had to put it away. I just couldn't deal with it. And so
Yeah.
for a while I just didn't play. And then I started getting good again. Remember, I was learning how to play some Led
Hmm.
Zeppelin and stuff. And I was thinking, hey, this is great. It's starting to sound a little bit better. And I was learning a few cool songs. And then I forget what happened. I think my health started to go downhill and I put it away again. And then I had to start around. And then I was learning all these worship songs. Beautiful, like kind of modern, contemporary worship songs, CCM Christian music. And then the guitar got put away again for almost a couple of years because I broke my shoulder. So when my shoulder, I just couldn't play with my shoulder like that. It was like no.
Wow.
So now I'm back at it, trying again to
Hmm.
get back at it. Yeah. So I'm always
You never
trying to do
give up.
something. It's inevitable. But
Yeah.
yeah, no. And we're writing books. Like we this
Hmm.
fall, I'm gonna actually get back into and actually try to finish up one of the books that we're working on together,
Hmm.
and then another one maybe by spring or something. The two that we're working on that are my books, but we're working on them. So we got two books from me coming out. Donna's
Yep.
got projects on the go. So we do also working, which you're busy working. So we're always kind of doing something. Yeah, busy. We stay busy. And now I'm trying to get in better shape physically. Like I just want to be able to do some hiking this summer, and at the rate I'm going, I'm not going to get 10 feet because I'm going to be like,
Yes, you will.
out of air. I'll be like,
You you've been
I
doing
got to
great
sit
with the Tai
down.
Chi. You've been doing incredible,
I'm doing good with it too,
and you look
but it's
great.
the cardio. Oh, thank you,
Mhm.
boo. Well,
You
I don't,
do.
yeah, I'm actually looking better. I don't feel yeah, I mean, I look okay, but it's my endurance level. Like my heart
Yeah.
just doesn't want to do it. So I'm working on cardio right now and strength training and core training, like core and
Hmm.
cardio.
Hmm.
So um, I'm doing that about 5, 6 days a week. And I figure maybe by June, I think by the end of June. So that gives me all of May, all of June. I should be in a lot better shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just
You will
daily
be.
kind of now doing it. So yeah, but it's
One day
slow,
at a
slow coming.
time. All you can do is take
That's
one day
all
at a
you can
time
do.
and move forward.
That's
after I
right.
had my shoulder
That's right.
surgery, there was so little things I could actually do because I had to wear that sling for almost 6 months. And like my
Mm-hmm.
arm was really like on this big pillow type sling, and I had to
Oh,
wear
I
that
know.
almost
That's
6 months.
terrible.
And like I
I
couldn't get
can't
up and I couldn't get
imagine.
out. And it took
Oh,
a long time to recover from that. It really did. So
that's hard.
it
Oh
sucked.
man, I
There
felt
was
sorry
one
for you.
surgery that I
Yeah,
hated. I've had surgery
that's
before, but
just
I
bad
think that
news.
was probably the worst.
Yeah, and then it's just it's hard. You can't get dressed. You can't do anything. With a broken shoulder, like it really sucks. It's really hard to get dressed. It's not funny, and it really
It was,
hurts. And it's like son of a gun.
yeah. It was terrible because I would
Use
get
your
out of the
shoulder for
shower.
everything.
Yep. I'd get out of the shower and I'd be like trying to dry off. And then I would say, Roger, come here. And he would say, what? I need help. And he'd come up. He had to put my underwear on me because I couldn't even put my own underwear on. And then I
Oh
was
yeah,
wearing
yeah,
those like
seriously.
granny nightgowns where I had one arm in and then my
Yeah,
other arm would just
yep.
come across and he
That's
would
what I
button
was
it.
wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to because I couldn't get dressed. So I was off
No, I
work for
couldn't
like two
either.
months because I couldn't get dressed. Yeah.
No, it did.
So I
It
was
took a
running
long
around in these like granny type dresses. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I started physical therapy, and I will say the physical therapist I had, Nate, he was incredible. But the first day there, he tried to move my
Yeah, that's
arm,
what
and
you were saying.
I'm like, dude, don't touch me. And he's like, I'm a physical therapist, I have to. And I'm like, it hurts, don't touch me. But I will say, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have no use of my arm. I had frozen
Yeah,
shoulder.
that's it.
After I had surgery, I got frozen
Yeah,
shoulder. So my arm got literally froze
that's
in
it.
one position. I couldn't even move it.
Yeah, and that's bad because there have been people who have actually, unfortunately, let that happen permanently, and then they could never use their arm again, which is really, really
I
bad.
couldn't do that.
You know what I mean?
I was too set
No,
that I
it's no
wanted
good. I
to,
met somebody
yeah,
like that one time.
yeah. I was too set on my ways that I was going to be able to use it again and I was going to do everything that I used to
Yeah,
do. For the most part, I do. I mean, there's a few things I can't do. A lot of times, like, especially when I was going to the gym, people would say, oh, they would do these wall push-ups, like you do a push-up off the wall. I could not do that. I can't do a push-up at all because if I do, my whole chest and down my back will hurt. So I'm like, I'm not going to, like
yeah,
do certain things. But for the most part, I can use it
yeah.
just like I did
It's no
before
good
the
to
surgery.
aggravate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you have to be careful, man. It's like when
Mhm.
you have, especially having surgery on it twice like that, like that's a problem. Right? You got to watch that.
Mhm.
So I didn't go through. So I didn't have to have surgery, but I had to let it heal. It did take 2 years, and it was a mess. They were like,
Mhm.
"Well, you could go get surgery," and they said if you do surgery, it's a 3-year healing period. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And they said if you don't do surgery, it's a 2-year healing period. I'm like, "Okay, let's just go with the non-surgery."
I
But
had to have
it's all
surgery.
dependent. That's the thing. You can't. For me, it was an option. So I didn't want more metal in my body. I said I don't want it. But I had a choice, whereas you didn't have a choice. There's nothing you could do because yours was different than mine. Mine was
Oh yeah.
just. Mine was like yours was whole. Yours was like wasn't it the cuff, the rotor cuff, and all that?
My
Like that.
rotator cuff, and then my bicep was holding on by like a
Yeah.
thread. When they did my surgeries, they did 3
Right.
surgeries in
Yours
one.
is different than mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like mine wasn't that at all. Mine was just all these broken bones, like all the way up my arm. That they said they were just hoping that they wouldn't slip. And they said,
Mhm.
if you just don't move it, and just really
That's
seriously
hard.
don't move it for the next like whatever month or something, and let them kind of bind together, you
Mhm.
should be okay. But if they slip, you're going to have surgery. So I had to keep going back for X-rays so they could check and make sure it hadn't slipped. And plus, they said I would pretty much know if it slipped because it would really hurt like
Oh yeah.
really bad. And so it was already hurting bad. I thought I don't know how it can hurt any worse.
It
They
can.
said no, you'll know.
It
And
can.
then I said, yeah, God, I was just like, oh. So I was just keeping it very still. And so long story short, that's kind of what happened to my health is I didn't do anything for 2 years because I was letting my shoulder heal for about a year and a
Mhm.
half anyway. And just sat around, no, not moving around, not doing anything, not working, looking for jobs, hanging around. Um, and wasn't even really eating a lot because I didn't have any money to buy a whole lot of food, so it wasn't really a food issue. But what I was eating wasn't healthy because I was eating really
Mm-hmm.
cheap. I was eating like hot dogs, Kraft dinner, and all this, which is not good for you.
No.
So, um, yeah, I just became very sedentary, lost my muscles in my legs, my hips. Felt like I was going to fall down all the time because that's how I fell and broke my shoulder. I slipped on the ice. So all of a sudden I'm thinking I'm a fall risk,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have enough strength in my legs anymore because I sat around for 2 years. They said, well, we got to get you in better shape. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
but you
started
can
going
go
to
plus.
physio where things are looking up. Oh yeah. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have had, I've been going to physio almost for a year now. And that's a, that's what got me started moving again. Because they were like,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get your legs strengthened and we're going to get you to be confident when you're walking so that you don't feel like you're a fall risk and get you solid on your hips and your legs. And
Mm-hmm.
they said your upper body is very strong, so it's not your upper body that's your lower body that's weak. Um, so yeah, that's what we've been working on, and it's great. Yeah, it's just that,
It is
for anybody
great.
listening, like it's these things can take. I mean, I'm sure there's people that can relate with what we're talking about. It almost seems like at the time you're just like, oh, you know, this
Mm-hmm.
sucks. But it is a fight to get back in the game. It is a
It
fight.
is.
You have to
It
fight
is.
to keep your health,
Yep.
especially at this age. I'm turning 60 this year, Lord willing, and whenever he calls me home, he does. But if he doesn't call me home, then I'm turning 60 this year, which is unbelievable. I never thought I'd live to be 50, so this is really an eye opener for me. And I'm like, it's a blessing from God,
It is.
praise God. So, but it's a fight to keep your health. The older you get, the harder it is.
It
So
is.
anybody who's older would probably agree, unless they've just been healthy all their life. You know what I mean? Like some
Mm-hmm.
people, I've met people like that are just, you know, they were hippies in the '60s. Hippies, um, health nuts, whatever you want to call them. People that would never touch sugar, don't eat junk, eat healthy all the time, do yoga, and are just really into their bodies, their physical body, maybe even their soul a bit too, um, and even spiritual stuff. And they are healthy, and that's great. Good for them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of people like me who did everything I possibly could to trash myself for many, many years.
All
I
do.
mean, like, oh, I partied. I mean, I partied hard. I was like an insane partier for years, um, just not taking care of my body as a young person. Finally, at the age of like 22, 23, trying to figure, okay, yeah, I guess, I'll try to get in better shape after my car accident that nearly killed me. And then, kind of paid the price for that. But then tried to be healthy, somewhat healthy after that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, tried to live a decent life, no crazy partying, no drugs, no alcohol, nothing like that. But still kind of not so much a health nut, like to eat the fattening foods, really enjoy smoking, and those are drinking coffee with sugar in it, you know what I mean? So never really been all that healthy. I'm not surprised that I'm in the shape that I'm in right now. I put myself here. So we are the sum total of what we do to ourselves our whole life. You know what I mean?
See, I was the
So
opposite from you. When I was younger, like in high school, I was always involved in a lot of sports. I did softball and basketball, and we played sports all year long, kind of like my kids did and my grandchildren do now. But then
mhm,
I graduated high school, I moved out, and I was still very active. Even after I got married and I had kids, I was still like very active. I walked, I rode a bike, I jogged. Where we
mhm,
live now, there is a hill behind our house. And even now at 55 years old, I can jog up that hill without stopping and I can jog 2 miles and it
mhm,
does not bother me at all. Um, the biggest thing is like if we're going hiking or something like that, and like we have a backpack on, I feel like I have a really hard time with the extra weight on me. But just to like basically jog, especially like in the summertime, it's not so bad. But
mhm,
walking's always been a really big thing with me, riding bikes and that kind of stuff. So I was a lot different on that aspect of it. But I never
Yeah, no, I
even
wasn't into sports.
yeah,
None of my
even now
friends.
I don't
We wouldn't have,
drink.
no, we were
You know,
just running from the cops mostly. That's what we were running.
oh
I
my
was either
god,
running from my parents or the cops, one or the other. You know what I mean?
it's crazy.
So yeah,
But
yeah.
no, I was
No, there
always
wasn't any
very
healthy stuff going on at all when I was doing it.
yeah, I was always very active. And then even the last couple years, like I said, we go hiking, we do things. I was down for probably almost 5 years when I hurt my shoulder. Because the first couple years they kept saying,
Yeah,
"Oh, it's a pulled muscle, it's a pulled muscle," and I had to literally fight the insurance company to get an MRI. Once I got an MRI, the doctor was like, "Oh my God, no wonder you have so much pain." And it's like, let's
that's
fix it.
terrible.
It took me probably, I'm going to say, a good year to start recovering. And then it went into the second year. It really took a long time.
Yeah. Well, I know, like when I busted my ankle in that car accident, um, at 18, it took 2 years for it to heal, and I was on crutches for like another. But man, let me tell you, it was so freaking painful, and it's been painful ever since. I can't run. I can't run after that. I was never able to run again. Um, I used to run. I would just start out and I would just say, okay, I'm going to run to a certain part of the city and back, just for something to do, because I really liked the idea of, somewhat just being active and having fun. I used to love to roller skate outside, like outdoor roller skating. I used to be roller skating up and down for hours. I lived in my roller skates.
Mm-hmm.
And um, skateboard on their skateboards, but I never owned a skateboard. I was more into roller skates. I really loved roller skate, but
Mm-hmm.
bicycles and stuff not so much. Never really was a fan of riding a bike, but I did really like to run, and I could run across town, like across the
Mm-hmm.
city and back, like no problem. You know what I mean? Until I was 18, I broke my ankle, and then that's my whole running days were over. But I'm glad that I did all that running around because, as a young person, because I got to feel what it's like. There's that whole high you get when you're. It's like marathon runners experience that high because you push your body to that limit where it literally is a high
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
experience. It's those endorphins and the whatever the cortisol, the endorphins, the dopamine, and all of that
Mm-hmm.
rushing. And it feels great. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I'm glad I did all that before I broke my ankle. After that, it was just kind of very much sort of a sedentary type situation. Just not a whole lot of running around, no more.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was always interested in oh, I don't know. We used to play tennis, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Racquetball. I like racquetball.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this kind of stuff. Just messing around.
Yeah.
But none of us could be on sports because my parents couldn't afford to put us on the sports team, so we weren't allowed to play sports. So nobody in the family played sports. Pretty much that's why, because it costs money to be able to put your kids through sports
Yeah.
because you got to have the
Yeah.
money for the equipment. My sister was a really fast runner as well. Both me and my sister were able to run like really fast. And she wanted to, she actually got invited to join the Duke City Dashers, which is the
Oh wow.
University of Albuquerque track team. Yeah. She wasn't even
Wow.
going to university. She got invited to be on their team
That's
and
awesome.
get a scholarship. But my
That's
mom wouldn't
awesome.
let her do it. I know.
Why?
I was just like,
Why? That would have
it
been
had something to do
incredible
with,
for her.
yeah. I think there was some initial money that had to be put down, and my mom they didn't do it. So my sister, I mean, her life would have probably been completely different. You know what I mean? Had she
Mm-hmm.
done that. So it's too bad. But yeah, I mean, like she was really good at running. I'm better at more of the sort of marathon type running, not so much speed. Whereas my sister was a Duke City Dasher. She's more the speed,
Mm-hmm.
So, just depends. Like everybody's bodies are different. But yeah, we were both into running.
Cool.
Yeah, it's funny.
We never had that at our
So,
school. We never had
well,
track
we
and
didn't. No, that was at the university. That was a university thing that wanted to pick her up. And I think they saw her running at high school, some sort of
Mhm.
track and field event, and they wanted to pick her up from there. So, yeah, because she was a really good runner. But
That's
um, we had PE, like, in high school we had PE, physical. We had an hour of PE every day or whatever. And usually, I mean, I was so stoned, I couldn't participate in anything because it was right after lunch, and I'd go get stoned, and I'd come back, and I was just like just all mellowed out and stoned, and so they would, the teams, all the people would choose their teams, and I was like always the last one to be chosen because people would be like, God, we don't want her on our team. I'd just be like, whatever. I'd never show up in my track pants. I'd never show up dressed for PE. I just show up in jeans or whatever. That's just like a rebel, totally a rebel. I've always been a partial rebel. Yeah. But the Lord loves rebels too, just so
that's
everybody
right.
knows.
That's right.
Jesus was a radical himself, so doesn't mean he was a rebel, but he was radical.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've got a little bit of rebel in me for sure, but not to the point where, because I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I really do believe that law is so important.
It
And
is.
yeah, you know, I'm just talking about being a rebel. Like, I don't dye my hair, and I don't give a shit. If you don't like my hair, I don't care. You know what I mean? I like
Yeah.
my hair. So uh, that's the rebel I'm talking about. I'm
Yeah.
me. I'm not going to be somebody for anybody else. I'm me. For me, I like myself. So I don't care. That's the
Yeah.
kind of rebel I'm talking about.
Barb and
But
I was
yeah,
talking
when I
about
was
that.
young, I was.
Barb and I was actually talking about that at work today, because we were talking like about the way we all dress differently and our styles are completely different. And we were talking like about hair and everything. And I said, I'm like so set in my ways, and I like things my way, and I like to dress the way I do, And she's like, I'm more like about dressing a certain way. And I'm like, everybody kind of has like their own style, and everybody
Oh
kind of dresses differently. And I said to her, I said, I buy a lot of jeans. I love jeans, but and I never used to wear jeans all the time. I'd always wear something comfortable. But anyway, I said, I'm always buying jeans. Well, a lot of times I'll get jeans and they'll have the rips in them. And she'll say, well, why do you get them? And I'll say, it's just, I don't know. I like the way they look when they're on, and it fits the other stuff, like I wear. And we were discussing like my style, her style, Marine's style. And it's like all three of us are completely different, but yet we all get along just like perfect, if you know what I mean. And it's just funny because it's
yeah,
like we're completely opposites.
yeah. That's the way it is, though. I mean, that's why it's funny when people try to. I was thinking about that today because I thought, oh yeah, we have a show tonight, and then I
Mm-hmm.
remembered that one because I always gripe about it because it made me so grumpy that this person would say this to me on my own show on the whole issue, my own YouTube channel. Somebody actually said, if you'd get a facelift and dye your hair, you'd look all right. And I'm just like, excuse me, like, who the hell are you? I'm sorry, I'm almost 60. I
Exactly.
look good for 60. Let me tell you, I don't even
No
have
one,
hardly any wrinkles. And
no one has a right to judge you. I mean, that's like
I don't need
we
a
can
facelift. Do I need a
we can
facelift? No.
no, you don't need a
Do I need a
facelift.
facelift? No. I'm
No.
almost 60. I think I look kick ass.
You look good.
Thank you very much.
You look good. Don't let anybody tell you that.
Thank you, Boo. I
Don't,
appreciate
don't
that.
let anybody tell
Yeah, I
you
don't
that.
think so.
There's when
No, I
we
was
since
just
we've
like,
been doing these
who
shows,
is this person to tell me that?
yeah, since we've been doing the shows, I get a lot of people, they'll say, oh, you wear makeup. And I'm like, I do. I wear mascara and I wear just a dab of eyeliner. And they're like, your eyes always look like they're kind of like slanted and smoky. And I'm like, okay, but that's all I wear. No, it don't. You put stuff on your face. And I'm like, I put nothing on my face because it makes me break out. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm me, and I know that I don't have anything on my face. It's just this is how I look. I'm sorry, but this is
Yeah.
me. But
Yeah.
everybody thinks like they know or they judge, and
I know.
it's like crazy. Oh, speaking of hair, you were talking about hair. I just had 15 inches cut off my hair. My hair is only
Yeah.
down to here now.
Yeah. It looks pretty though. I like it. Yeah, when
Thank
you
you.
showed it to me, I thought that was really pretty. Your hair is always pretty though. That's what I always say because you're always like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, your hair is gorgeous. You always
I know.
look nice.
Well, that's it. I said tonight, I'm like, oh, look at this. I'm having like such a bad hair day. And you're like, oh, it's
Oh,
good.
oh, you have beautiful hair. You always look good, boo. You always look nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Your
you.
hair's
That's
pretty.
sweet.
It's very pretty. And and you always style it nice. You always look nice. And
Thank
that's
you.
that's the thing.
You know,
We're all different. We all look a certain way, and we're
you look
all, like I say,
you
all women
look
are
just as
beautiful
nice.
in their
You
own
look
way,
just as nice
right?
with your hair the way it is. You wouldn't
Thank you,
have to
boo.
have
I
your hair
appreciate it.
any other way. I think it looks great.
I got it. I always have it in a clip because if I don't, it'll be all over the place. It's kind of all one length long. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And I've got a fan blowing, and if I took this clip off, my hair would be all over the place. Like literally my hair is so fluffy. It's so fine and fluffy. Like it's just wisp.
Oh,
It'll
wow.
just blow away. It'll be like, woof.
Well, they
Yeah.
braided my hair and they put like a ponytail thing on it.
So wispy.
And she cut it so I could have this big long braided ponytail. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then it was like 3 days later, I go back and I said, can you cut like 3 more inches off? And she's like, we already took 12 inches off. And I'm like, we need 3 more. I said, it drives me crazy.
It looks pretty.
So she cut it and I was like, I like it. I like it. That was the first haircut
Yeah.
I had in probably, I'm going to say 2 years. Like I trim it a little bit once
Hmm.
in a while, but the actual real big haircut, because I know one time before I had like 6 inches cut off. And then another time I had 6
Yeah.
inches cut off. I mean, a massive amount.
It was pretty long.
My hair,
I mean,
it
it
was
was
down
long.
my
That one
waist.
picture. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it was
was
literally
long all the way down.
down. Yeah, it was literally to my waist, and I think it was actually longer than that. But I said, I'm like, it gets too heavy, and then I started getting like headaches again
Yeah.
and migraines, and I was like, it's not worth it. Plus, it's
That's the
summer. I want
thing. Yeah.
to, and I will tell you, I
That's
am the worst
right.
person in the world for people to touch my hair. Remember I told you about the
Hmm.
day that I had a meeting and this guy like touched my hair and I made Maureen wash my hair and
Yeah.
he cursed at work.
That's
And
not
then
cool, actually. Ooh, that's
no,
pretty cringy, actually. It is.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then another time we were in a meeting and someone come behind me and she grabbed my hair and she goes, you have such pretty hair. And I'm like, I don't just walk up to people and
Don't
touch
touch
their
my
hair.
hair.
Please don't touch my
I
hair.
don't
Like
go around touching
it drove
anybody, period.
crazy. No, it drove me
It's not a
crazy.
good
And I'm just
idea to
like,
touch people,
no. I'm like,
unwanted, like, because you don't know whether that person is going to be okay with that or not, right?
well, I'm a
I
not
had somebody
okay
do that to me at work one day. Yeah. There was a woman did that to me at work, and I did like, and I really like her. She's a nice person. This was at the bank that closed down before that I was talking about, and she was a super nice lady. Nothing against her at all. She didn't, she just a nice lady, no problem, whatever. She didn't mean anything by it, but she came up and put her hand on my back, like just to pat you. I've done it myself accidentally one time because I felt so sorry for this one person that I wanted to let them know that my heart was with them and I really felt bad for what they were going through. And I kind of just barely touched them because I know I don't like to be touched. And I'm like, I'm sorry if that offended you. I just want you to know I'm just feeling so bad for what you're going through. And I'm praying for you. And they were like, oh no, that's okay. Don't worry about it. But I said, no, I don't usually go around touching people. So I am sorry
yeah,
about
I
that.
don't.
But this one lady came up and literally, like you're saying, that guy put his hand on your hair and sticky, like she came up and did that to my back
Ew.
and kind of kept it there. And I was like, oh, and I cringed, and she goes, oh no, and I said, she goes, I'm sorry, and I said, oh, I said no, I said I really don't like when people touch me. I said no, no
No,
problem, no problem between us, I just don't like it when people touch me, like I really don't. And
no,
I said it's not, you know,
it's not
I'm not
cool.
upset. I'm not, no problems. I just don't like it. She goes, oh no, I'm sorry. I said, no, no, don't worry about it. It's
Yeah,
just that I just was like, and it's not because of her. She's a nice lady. I don't really like people touching me. No.
yeah. I don't
Some
like people
people
to
do.
touch
They're
me.
touching feeling.
No. If
Yeah.
if I um I know where I work, a lot of people are very huggy. They'll go up, they'll just start like hugging each other, or they'll give each other a kiss in the cheek. I'm not that person. Don't come up to me and hug me. Don't be giving me no kiss in the cheek. If I know you
Mm-mm.
and I know you well and I'm comfortable hugging you, that's one thing. But for someone to come up and like touch you or hug you or um I mean, they'll hug
Yeah,
and
I
they'll
don't
give
like
each other a kiss, and I'm just like, I will walk away because I'm not that person. No one's gonna put their lips on me. No one's gonna touch me. I can't help it. It's the person that I
I'm not
am.
that person.
I am not that person. And then they always say, "Oh, we're like a big family here," and I'm like, "Well, then I'm the black sheep because I don't want to be touched."
Not everybody does, and that's the thing. That's
No,
why it's bad manners to do that. Actually,
it is. It really is.
um, unless you're in a crowd where seriously everybody is there is huggy, touchy, feely. Well, that's fine. You know what I mean. But if you don't know if the person is or not, then don't do it because you can freak them out. Because it can cause people all sorts of anxiety and
Yeah.
you know whatever these issues are that people have. You know what I mean, where it could trigger them or whatever. And then you don't want to cause somebody to have a bad day or just to feel bummed out about the whole experience just because you had to go up and touch them all over the place. I mean, to me, I think that's gross. I don't really go around touching people because I don't really think it's necessary. You know,
No. If when
it's just
I see
not.
you, yes, I would be comfortable hugging you. We've been friends for how long? I'm comfortable with like
Yeah, because
Marie
I mean, in
or
California, we were
Barb,
hanging out and
stuff like that.
we hugged before we left on the plane and everything, and that's normal. You know what I mean?
And that's like Lee.
We're best
When I see
friends.
Lee, yeah, when I see Lee and we
We're
live
besties.
together, I have no problem hugging her. But I don't want someone coming
Yeah.
up to me at my job that I don't know and like giving me a hug and kissing me in the cheek because I'm just like, get the hell away from me. You just gross me
No.
out. I'm not that person. I'm just not that person. I
That's
am
right.
I'm a lot of times at work they will laugh because they'll say I'm a
That's the thing.
germaphobe. And I don't think I'm actually a germaphobe, but working in nursing, you learn that everything is dirty, everything has germs, and you really get a good look at how dirty places are and people can be. So I'm just one of those people. I'm like, I've been there. I know. I've seen working in nursing. I don't want people touching on me.
Oh yeah.
So, and if they get
Seriously.
upset, they get upset. I mean,
It's the
I
same
get
situation.
upset is when they put their hands on people. So, but no, that day I was at that meeting,
Mhm.
my hair was down. And like I said, my hair was down past my waist. This guy, he comes over and he's talking to everybody. And I kind of walked away and I turned my back. He come right over and he put his hand right in the middle of my back on my hair and he patted and he goes, "You have yourself a good day now." And his freaking hand stuck to my hair and I could feel it. And I was like, oh God. So I go in
I'm
this
sorry.
this public bathroom
That's
and I'm
not
trying to
good.
wipe my hair off. And I pulled it up and I got back to work and I
That
said to Marie,
sucks. Oh,
"You need to wash my hair." And she's like, "What?" I said, "You need to wash my hair." So she took a washcloth and she's washing my hair at work with a washcloth. And I pulled
yeah.
it up. I got home that night and I immediately come in, I showered and I could not stand it because all I kept thinking was, why the hell did his hand stick to my hair? And what did he have in his hand
Mhm.
that made it stick to my hair? And it's like, nope.
Yeah, it's
It,
nasty.
it grossed me right out.
This is it. Yeah, this is it. People, we don't know where people's hands have been, and I, okay, I would say I'm not a germaphobe, but with the way the world is today, and the amount of really harmful bacteria that is out
Yeah.
there that keeps getting passed around. I
Yep.
don't want it. I don't need it. And so I literally don't touch any part of my face or any part of my
No.
body or my mouth or anywhere until I make sure my hands are cleaned or got some
Yeah.
antibacterial gel on there or something. And I'm not a flip out. I'm not one of these freaks, you know. But and hey, you know what? No problem if you are. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I
I'm
am.
a
She's calling
hand
me a freak.
washer.
Okay, I'm sorry. Forgive me. That's that's me being rude. No, there's no problem with that. If you are, no sweat. The thing is I'm not. As a kid, I played in the dirt. I used to make mud pies in with dirt in the backyard. Wasn't concerned about dirt, and bugs and other stuff. I used to swim in the gutter when it would rain because it would flood the gutters, and I'd go out and play in the gutters and swim around.
Like,
And my
cool.
mom would be like, "Get out of that gutter right now! You get in here," because she didn't want me getting washed away because the gutters were going so fast with this rain. And she was worried I was going to get carried off down somewhere where out down to a manhole somewhere. So she was like, "Get out of the gutter." So as a kid, hey, I played in all the germs and bacteria. The thing is that as an adult, I already know just how unhygienic, seriously, a lot of people are.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows what they're doing with their hands? Who knows whether they're washing or not when they come out of the restaurant, out of the restroom, out of the restaurant, out of the
Really?
restroom. And you don't know whether they wash their hands or not.
No.
They've done
Well, that's
studies.
what-
They've literally done studies to see how
yeah.
many people actually leave the restroom without washing their hands. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
And
like
they're
working
touching
with
doorknobs and everything else.
I'll say to the kids when they come back from the restroom, did you wash your hands? Half of them will say no, and I'll say go wash your hands, because it's
Mhm.
like they touch everything and then we touch everything. And like I said, working in nursing, I learned all about bacteria and germs, and it's like,
Oh,
no
yeah.
way, man. And Barb said to me today, she goes, I noticed that you constantly wash your hands or you use hand sanitizer. And I said, it is a habit because of working in nursing. I'm like, it's just, I worked in nursing all those years. So it was like,
Yeah.
great, and I knew that you had to be like clean. You had to be very clean.
Oh, yeah.
So I
Because you
just,
don't want
because
to
you
be
knew
passing
what
around
you were getting
germs.
your hands
Exactly.
into, so it was like, no, I always took
Yeah.
precaution. It stuck with me after all those years. But it's like, no, you don't know what people's touching. You don't know where their hands are. I mean, and some of the people that I've seen, no, just no.
Seriously, you don't know. Nobody would know where my hands have been, for instance. I could say, hey, I washed my hands. How do you know if I did or not? You know what I mean?
You don't. You
Like,
don't.
I just don't trust people. And so, I'm always very aware of that, yeah, you don't touch your face, you don't touch your mouth,
No.
you don't touch anything you're going to eat. And, with hands that you don't know if you've touched other doorknobs, like, in a mall, you're walking through a mall, you're going in and out of doors, you're touching things, you picked up
Mm-hmm.
50 trillion bacteria. You don't
Yep.
know what the hell they are, or bacteria, I guess. And you're walking around and touching your face and licking your lips, and you know,
Nope.
it's just not okay, So yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I wouldn't want somebody's hand sticking to my hair. That would gross me right out.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it would.
Lori, I got in
Maybe
the
somebody else
shower.
would be okay with it, but not me.
Yeah. I got in the shower that night
Oh,
and I washed my hair like 3 times, just right in a row. I'd wash it, wash it, rinse it. It was like I could not stand just like I said, his hand literally stuck to my hair. And the bad part was the other people that was there, they were all hugging him and giving him big kisses. And I'm just like, what? I can't do this. And then when we left, one of the people that went to the meeting with me, she said, well, why were you upset? What was wrong? And I'm like, if you're okay kissing on somebody you don't know, that's fine. Me, I don't kiss on people I don't know. And I sure the hell don't want people touching me. And she goes, well, I know you have a
yeah.
real problem with people touching your hair. And I said, you have short hair, very short hair. I mean, hers is like, it's longer on top, but it's like real short by the sides and real short on the neck. And I'm like, if
Mhm.
you're okay with that for you, hey, that's fine. But me, I don't want people's dirty hands in my hair. And I think I have a right to say that. She's like, oh, you're
Oh,
overthinking
right.
things. I don't think about germs. And I'm like, well, I do.
No, and the thing is like, that's your right. It's your body. It's your right.
I bet there's a
It's
lot of
kind of
people who
like the
agree with
whole thing
me.
of, it's just crap because people are always trying to assume that just because they don't mind that you should be okay with it too. And it's like, no,
There's just a
no,
lot of
no.
people that agree with me that wouldn't be comfortable with someone just touching their hair or coming up and giving them a kiss on the cheek or hugging them, especially when you don't know them.
That's really sleazy, actually. I think that's slimy. Yeah.
They all
I was at a little ceremony here in the building today, and there was all kinds of people there I didn't know. And one guy, he's like the sort of a big wig in this in sort of in the whole running of this whole thing. And he came up and he wanted to just talk to me for a minute, and he shook my hand, and that's appropriate. I didn't mind him shaking my hand because that's kind of normal. That's what people do, if they're
I
just
wouldn't
trying to be
mind it.
respectful. Shaking hand, it's kind of like that's fine. It's in interviews, they might shake your hand, this kind of stuff. People that you don't know. But the thing is, but just to be all touchy on you, I don't go for that shit at all.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, no.
But they were all at this
That's
meeting and they're all like hugging and kissing each other in the cheek, and they're like, this is how we do it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna wait over here. And I completely removed myself from the situation, and he literally come
go
right
for
over like, I was so mad. But the worst part is I got back to work and I said to Maureen, you got to wash the back of my hair right now. And she's like, what? And I told her, and she's like, and she took a washcloth and she's scrubbing my hair and she's rinsing it and she's scrubbing it again.
to help you wash your hair. But
I said to her, I know, but they're at work, there's not a big enough sink that I could have like washed my hair because I got a lot. At that
no,
time I had a lot of hair. So she's like, I'll wash it. And she was washing my hair and rinsing it, washing it, rinsing it. She's like, people should not just go up and touch other people. She said, I wouldn't like that either. But like I said,
no,
they were
no.
all huggy feely. And I'm just like, not this girl.
Yeah, like I don't touch strangers, period, unless it's just
Either.
to shake hands with somebody who's being very polite to me. To like, if it's like, that's what I'm saying. This guy was just very polite. He wanted to just say hi. Um, you know, he wasn't even asking me questions. He was just talking to me a little bit, and uh, and he just shook my hand. That's kind of normal. I don't mind that. But if he would have come up behind me and been all Mr. Sleazy Man and put his hands on me, I'd be like, oh, yeah, no, I don't go for
No,
that.
I didn't like it because I removed myself from the situation and I went clear across the other side of the room and I stood by myself. And I even like put my back to him because I
done the
thought
same
they won't
thing.
approach me if I have my back to him. And it didn't matter. And I was so pissed. I mean, pissed,
Yeah,
literally. But do you remember
that's
when we went to
gross, man.
California? We met a lot of famous people out there, and we
Yeah,
didn't hug on any of them. They shook our hands. They said they were
no,
happy to meet us, but nobody
that's
was
right.
hugging on anybody or
We never
I
sat
mean,
around hugging on him, and no,
no.
and they didn't
Even
do
like
that to us either.
even like at first when we went there, a lot of them were like the first time like we seen an actual big name celebrity, and it was like,
Hmm.
oh, you like even you were like a little starstruck because you're like, wow, like I had no idea we were going to meet these people, but never did like we
Yeah,
go crazy or try to be touching on them. We were just like very polite and
no,
kind as they were to us. We shook hands and very nice to
exactly.
meet you, and that was it.
It's a matter of common decency and respect. It's kind of like, you know, they wouldn't like it if one of us ran up to them and
Exactly.
grabbed onto the back of them and started hugging on and kissing on their cheeks. Do you think they would like that? I don't think so.
No,
They would have
no.
been pissed.
I would
This
have never
was
done that.
There was a lot of people, really a lot of famous people at that event. That was so
Hmm.
cool. That State and Fate of Children, and there were people, lots of people there, different kinds, different people from different backgrounds. I mean, there were country singers there. There were artists. There were
Actors.
entrepreneurs, actors. Yeah, exactly. There were all kinds of different people there, and everybody was being respectful, and nobody was running around huggy,
No.
kissy, grabbing onto each other, acting like a bunch of dimwits. You know what I mean? It's kind of,
Mhm.
to me, it's just common courtesy. They didn't do that to us, and we didn't do that to
No,
them. That was
no.
good. Yeah.
But that's what I tried to bring up today when we were talking about it at work. I'm like, I'm not the huggy feely
Hmm.
kind of person, and that's just the way it is. And I'm like, as many times as we've
No.
traveled and we've met people, I've never been like, oh, you're so and so, and jumped on them and started hugging them. Like, it was always, I was kind and courteous, just like they were to me. Hey, very nice to meet you. Blah 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 blah.
That's right.
Whatever. But
Hmm.
we never overextended, and they didn't either. It was like mutual respect, and I like that. And I think in any
Hmm.
setting, everyone should be mutually respectful to each other. I don't think you should have people coming up touching people, whether that's the way it is with certain organizations or whatever. I don't think it's appropriate. I think that, and they'll say, oh, well, this is typical whatever group or organization, and I don't agree with that. I just totally don't agree with that. So I learned
No,
very quickly that once the meetings are over, say your goodbyes and get the hell out of there, because
get out.
if not, they're going to have a hug fest,
Seriously.
and I'm not part of it.
Seriously. I don't, I'm not even sure if I told you about this. I probably did at some point. I was working for this company. I won't even say which one it is. And I had just gotten hired on there. I wasn't there very long. And so I thought it was weird that they would invite me to this annual um, hotel shindig that they were throwing because um, they do it every year. And I thought, I'm just a newbie. I thought it was a little weird that they were going to pay for me to be part of this. So it was in Calgary, so it's that wasn't like traveling anywhere or anything like that. But they were going to rent a room. You got the room for overnight.
Mhm.
We're going to have meetings and then a nice dinner and breakfast the next morning and another set of meetings and then head out. You know what I mean? So it's just like
Mhm.
a overnighter. And spouses could come if they wanted to because it was paid for. But Cecil, he was just not physically well, terminally ill. He was like, "No, I'm not going to this thing." And I was like, "I don't blame you, honey. I mean,
No.
you know, I mean, you'd be bored anyway. You don't, and you may as well be comfortable in your own bed instead of having to deal with all these people, Because
Mhm.
I didn't even really know them. I had only started working there a few months before. Which I thought it was weird they would invite me. They said, no, all staff gets invited.
Mhm.
So, we're there, we're at the hotel. I got this beautiful corner suite, two windows, corner suite with a little couch and everything. It was a beautiful room at one of the nicest hotels downtown Calgary. And I live
Nice.
right by it. I live right by it, actually. Um, and it was a beautiful suite. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Like, seriously, that's like a $300-400 a night hotel.
Mhm.
It's a nice hotel, and it's like the rooms are expensive. And I'm thinking, this is a real treat. I thought, wow, what a great company to do this. So we were down there having dinner, and pretty soon, before you know it, I start hearing people starting to whisper um, all this stuff. And I'm thinking, this seems a little bit almost too friendly. One guy sitting next to me goes, what color are your underwear? And I'm
Oh my
like,
goodness.
that's my business. That's not your business, buddy. And he goes, and I said, besides that, I'm married, so my husband's the only one that's going to know the color of my underwear. Thank you very much. And he goes, well, we're all married, honey. And so it was a big, what do you want to call it?
Orgy.
Wife husband swap. No, it was a swinger thing, swapping
Oh,
partners. It was a swap out.
okay.
Everybody was going to swap out and spend the whole shebang swapping out, right? And I'm like, I'm not swapping out, so I'm going to bed. Good night. You know what I mean? I made a quick escape back to my room and started to figure out what was going on. And somebody had said something to me. They said the parties are wild. Okay, now
Mhm.
I took that as to be wild, kind of like my own party days back when I was young, kind of partying. It wasn't that kind of party. You know what I mean?
No.
And so I didn't wasn't thinking it was that at all. I wasn't thinking that. And
I can't even
come to
imagine.
find out, that's exactly what they were doing. And I'm like, it just grossed me out. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, I locked every door on that door to make sure that
I
they
don't
didn't have a
blame her.
card to get in there. I was quite paranoid, actually. because I'm thinking, geez, what if the owners have the cards and they let, they're just going to, I don't know. I got scared. I locked all the doors. I didn't sleep well. And the next day we had the meetings, and everybody was because they were all hungover, because they were all, toasted the whole evening before. They're all hungover. So the boss was grumpy. Everybody was cranky. Breakfast wasn't so much fun. It was the most bizarre situation. We go, everybody just goes back to work and pretends that it's all good. You know what I mean? And then I'm just like, okay, what did I get myself into here? You know what I mean?
That is.
So
That's really crazy.
They were a little group of huggy, kissy people. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking, when I see stuff like that, that's what that reminds me of. People within organizations that don't know each other, hugging and kissing on each other. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Nope.
It gives it away to me that they're players and that they're playing.
I attended that meeting.
I'm not a player. I've never.
No. I attended the meeting because I was a guest and I was asked to speak, and I was like, okay, great. And I thought, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to be able to talk about the registry. And anytime I get a chance to talk about the registry, I jump on it because I want it to be passed. And I thought, this is a great thing. I'm going to go down. I'm going to do a speech. I did this speech and they all clapped. Actually, they all stood up and they're clapping. They're like, this was great, and then we did a question answer segment, and they could ask me questions, and I answered to the best of my knowledge, because from my original plan of the registry to current, it has had some changes. Like Aaron changed some things. I mean, he had to, and he told us that he would have to. So I answered all their questions, and they were all like really super impressed, like, wow, this like the back of your hand, and this is great, and this is going to do so many great things. And I go out, and as I go out, we shook hands, and I went down through, and I went out and I waited in the lobby because I was waiting for somebody that rode along with me. And the next thing I know, they're all like hugging and kissing and touching. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? I am out of here. So I went clear across to the other side, and I stood over there, and I was and it had like all the different names, like when people donate money to an organization and they put like a little plaque on something and they hang it on the wall. I was over there and I'm looking at them and I'm minding my own business. Next thing I come over and he just took his hand. He's like on my back. And I'm like, and then when he pulled his hand away, my friggin' hair stuck right to his hand. I was just like, bleh, because I am that person, I gag really easy about certain things. I go in the bathroom and I'm trying to like wash him off my hair. And then the whole time driving up back to work, I'm like, oh God, oh God, oh God. I walked in the building and Marine's like, what the hell's wrong with you? Your face is beat red. You look like you were just like beat up. And I said, somebody touched my hair. And then I told her the story.
But it wasn't just like a little touch. I mean, this was gross, Like, who knows? It was probably sweat on his hand.
Like he was
but the thing is, that's gross.
It was disgusting. And then I go in and I'm like, you have to help me wash my hair. You have to help me wash my hair right now. So I wetted my hair and she's like scrubbing it up the best she can. And she did. And I'm like, do it again, do it again. She washed my hair like 3 times, the back of it. And then I pulled it up in a ponytail and I put it like in a bun on top of my head. I come home and I showered and I washed my hair 3 times in the shower. And when I went back to work the next day, they were saying about, oh, well, they'd like you to come back and speak again. And I said, no friggin' way. I'm not going back to that place. People's not touching me. I don't like to be touched. And she said, oh, we're just all huggy feely. We're all good friends. And that's what it is. It's typical whatever organization. And I'm just like, not with me. It's not. Yeah. I'll never go back. Never will I go back.
That's awful. Yeah. No, I mean, everybody's different. Some people are totally okay with that. They're real open. They don't mind that kind of stuff. I don't like it myself,
opposite.
But it's and everybody's just different, and that's okay. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, nothing wrong with the people that are okay with that. But that's why you have to be careful. Not you, but I'm talking about public people. But anybody who's listening to this or whatever.
As a person, don't you have boundaries? As a person, don't you have
I
boundaries?
totally have boundaries. Yes. My
And
boundaries are a little bit too firm. I have a problem with they're too firm. Yeah.
you know,
I don't bend on much.
no.
I'm
And
kind of like,
a
they're
couple of
pretty
years
set in
ago,
stone.
we did a campaign, and you might even remember, where we used the bubbles, and we had like we'd made the gift bags, and we had 5 different things in there, and it was like the circle. You put your arms out and you can make a circle, and that's your boundary spots. No one's supposed to come on your spot unless you're comfortable having them. And we taught these kids
Mm-hmm.
that.
Oh
And
yeah,
here we are.
I remember that.
Yeah, and here we are teaching children that, like, use your arms and stick them straight out beside you and in front of you, and no one should come in, within that boundary space. Here I am teaching children this, even at my place of work. I'm teaching children, like, you don't get in someone else's everybody's boundaries. Don't get in nobody's face. And then you have grown people coming over, like getting in your face, and especially when they're like all hugging and they're like, "Oh, come here." And I'm like, "Nah, see ya, deuces. I'm out of here." And then
Yeah,
you turn
that's
around
me.
and I remove myself from the situation, and the person comes right over and like puts his gross hands in my hair. And I'm just like, "No, that's not cool. Like, there's boundaries, dude." And I set boundaries. I don't want no one up in my face, and I don't want nobody touching me. And it's just the way I am. After all these years, no one's
There's
going to
nothing wrong
change
with
the way
that.
I am. So,
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I definitely have boundaries. I don't like it when people come right up in my face.
no, I don't like.
It's not because I can't see or anything like that. Because I wear these glasses really for detail, because they're progressives. So really, the top is not. There's really not much up there because I can see without them. But I just use the bottom for reading and for small stuff, right? So
Mhm,
I don't have them on all the time. But so it's not that I can't see. You know what I mean. So I don't always wear these. The thing
mhm.
is so some people, if they can't see well, they don't have their glasses on. It might scare them if somebody comes right in their space. But for me,
Yeah.
it's not that issue because I can actually see well. The issue is like somebody comes, and let's say it's somebody I know even, and I literally know them. It doesn't matter who it is. If they
Mhm,
come right up into my face, I'm very uncomfortable with that
mhm.
because I don't do that to other people. I don't feel like I
No,
need to be right in their face to say something because
no.
what that's telling me is that they are butting in on my conversation and my time. Let's say
Mhm.
I'm having a conversation with somebody, or I'm standing there in a group and we're talking about something, and all of a sudden somebody comes up and puts their face in my face and starts talking.
I don't like that.
I'm like, okay, you're just commandeering my time, is what you're doing, and that's bullshit.
Mhm,
Because right now I'm involved in this over here, so I get
mhm.
all pissed off when people do it. It's not like I feel threatened or afraid. More of anything, I think it's rudeness. I don't do that to anybody, and
But
I just
Lori,
stand back and let people acknowledge, like, if they want to
on
talk to you, they're going to talk to you. You don't have to get right in their face, right?
but you got to look at it from my point of view too. I'm legally blind in my left eye. I don't see much of
Yeah.
anything on this side at all. And yep, I have cheaters. I wear the cheaters because I wear a contact in my right eye, but I need them for fine print. So I always have the cheaters available. But just like myself,
Hmm.
I'm standing there and someone comes up, and just like that, he come up to me and he put his hand on me. I didn't even see him come up beside me. And that's what made me
Right.
so, I think, upset and uncomfortable in the same sense. And it's like,
That's the thing.
no,
See,
like, yeah, you invaded my
if somebody
space
has
and I
vision
couldn't see you,
issues, it's a problem. Hmm.
you know. So, but it was
For
it was a big learning
yeah.
lesson that, there's a lot of people out there that they're just very free to do whatever, and I'm just like, no, that's not me. So the next time I said,
I mean,
I got invited to do another speech, and I did. The minute it was over, I was like out. I thought, I am not sticking around. I'm not saying bye. I'm not doing anything. I'm out of here. But I'll tell you,
it's like, oh,
every person
no.
that I met with, whether it was a representative, a senator, a governor, a mayor, a group, I've never had a problem with anyone else. And it was just weird that this one organization was so different. Now, Stephanie Borowitz. I know Stephanie pretty well. Stephanie and I are friends. If I see her, she's like, "Get over here, girl." And yeah, we do. We give each other a hug, but we're friends. But I'm not cool with
Right,
hugging
that's
somebody
different.
I don't know, because somebody had actually said that on
Exactly.
social media. Will you hug Stephanie Borowitz? And I'm like, and she's my friend. And, friend or
Right.
not, if I don't agree with something she says, I'm like, hey, I don't agree with that. Or if I agree with her, I say. But you can't take
Mm-hmm.
somebody I know or I respect and put them with someone that I don't even know over here, because it's like, no, it's a completely different thing,
That's right.
you know?
That's right. And the issue is I think that a lot of people they don't know what boundaries are.
No,
They don't have boundaries,
no,
and they don't even know what a boundary is. You know what I mean?
no,
So honestly, people don't really do any of. And why would you? If you never thought you had a problem in your lifetime of boundary issues, you wouldn't know about it. The only
no.
reason I do is because I had to learn how to set boundaries because
Hmm.
growing up abused as a child, I really needed to protect myself I needed to learn how to protect myself as an adult because I could never say no as a child. I could never say no because I'd be either physically abused, sexually abused. I could never say no. This is my body; it belongs to me. And people would just do whatever they want to me, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. So as an adult, I had to learn, and really, I did set up some serious walls, which really kept people out, which is why I was just doing all the drugs and partying and set up these huge walls. Nobody could get in. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to hurt me anymore. So when I got older, I started to realize, oh, I don't want that kind of a lifestyle. I want friends and I want
Hmm.
relationships. I want to learn how to have good relationships, and
Hmm.
I want to be a good friend, and I also would like some good friends. So I had to let those walls come down. So
Yeah,
in
you
the
do.
meantime, I didn't have any proper boundaries set up, right? And so, I had to literally learn how to do it. And I had to get books and information on it, on how to set proper boundaries, how to actually make them work and stick,
Hmm.
and what you're okay with, what you accept, and what you won't accept, and how to be okay about it, and how to be okay telling other people about it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, it was a big deal for me. For some people, they may never have had to do that, and that's okay. Um, for a lot of people, it's a serious issue, and they have to set boundaries, and they have to learn how because they have been trampled on in their lifetime or whatever. Somehow something has come along and caused them to have to do this. So it's some people don't know about boundaries, and that's fine. But some people need boundaries, and
I
they don't
do.
even know it. And
I do.
like, you know,
Within my
and
classroom,
I
I
feel bad
teach
for the.
within my classroom,
Yeah,
I teach
you should.
boundaries. Like, like, this is
It's
your
fantastic.
space. And I tell all of them, this is your safe space. No one has a right to get in your face. No one has a right to come up to you. No one has a right to put hands on you. Like, not at all. And I try to
Yeah.
teach them that because, like I said, with all the advocacy work we've done over the years, that was one of the biggest
Hmm.
things that, that we did was we would teach
Yeah,
kids. And I thought it's no
that's right.
different at a outside event or if it's within my classroom that I'm telling these kids, like, you don't have a right to put your hands on anybody else, or
It's safety.
you don't have a right to get in anybody's safe space. I think we're delayed a minute.
Hmm. Safety.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that that everyone's entitled to their own safe space. And I think it's a good thing to teach kids because a lot of kids, they don't
Yeah.
have any like set boundaries or anything. So I think it's important.
No, it's very important because most people, I mean, most homes are not, and that's not running people down. It's not putting parents down. It's not
Mm.
putting anybody down. It's just to say what family literally sits around discussing these things? They just don't. Unless it
No.
comes up on a TV show, and
Hmm.
they see something and they say, "Oh, that's right, kids. You know,
Hmm.
you whatever these perimeters are, to stay safe." If they don't see it on some sort of kids programming, the school really then has to be the one to say, um, "Hey, kid, we got to have this in our program because kids don't know about this, and it's really important." I like all that, my body belongs to me stuff,
Hmm. Hmm.
and um, you know, just really making it a point that, hey, you have a right to say no, and you have a right to tell, to get help and to tell an adult
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's doing anything to you to make you uncomfortable, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, you don't have to, you know what I mean? Because so many kids, they don't know that, you know,
No,
and
they
that's why
don't.
the abusers, or whoever these predators are, or whoever these people are that are abusing these children, um, are telling these children, oh, this is our secret, or don't tell anybody because I'll, somebody will get hurt, or, whatever
Mm-hmm.
these things that they tell these children, whether they're children or not, somebody else's children, these people are going to tell them whatever they need to keep that child silent. So
Yeah.
kids need to know, unfortunately, you shouldn't have to teach kids this stuff because
No.
it should never have been an issue in the first place that a child should ever be in danger from
Mm-hmm.
somebody doing something to them that they shouldn't be doing, whether it's physical, sexual, verbal, whatever. Doesn't matter. Psychological. People shouldn't be abusing children, period. Doesn't matter who it is. So
A
even
few
in a
years.
bullying situation, I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah. A few years ago, we actually did a campaign for kids, and we taught them like about bullying, and no one has a right to bully you because there's so much bullying going on
Yeah.
anymore, especially even in small schools like we have around here.
Oh,
And
it's
then
terrible.
if you call the school and you say anything about it, they'll say, "Oh, we don't have a problem with bullying." And it's like you have a huge problem with bullying. You
Yes.
know, and there's so many kids though that are taking their own lives. And Lori, it's heartbreaking
Yeah.
that
It's
any kid
tragic.
feels the only way to escape is to take their own life. That literally breaks
Yeah.
my heart. And then
It's
you and
bad.
we have friends that, wanted to take their own lives and have attempted to take their own lives, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
I mean, so
That's it.
it's hard, and they feel like they don't have any reason to live. But there's so many cases right now out about like a 10-year-old, and it's not one, it's several, but a 10-year-old commit suicide because they were being bullied at school,
Mhm.
and the school doesn't do anything about it. Do you know how low a child has to feel to want to take its own life to escape bullying? And you can't
Oh yeah.
make school see it. You can't make people see it. I know myself, I always worry about, like, especially with my kids, I worry about them. I think, I never want them to go through that or experience that. But I know
No.
even like within our school district, I've had parents contact me, I've had kids contact me, I've had other kids contact me on behalf of younger kids. And they're always
Mhm.
saying, this is going on and this is going on. And we try to help them the best we can. But I'll tell you what, the school districts, they don't want to admit there's a problem. And then you have judges
No.
that literally, when someone does something to a kid, they give them like a slap on the wrist. And it's like, no, that's not enough. Like you have to make the punishment fit the crime, and all too often they don't. They give them a slap on the wrist and they send them back out to do something to somebody else.
That's it. And the
It's
and the and the
heartbreaking.
kid just, whoever the bullying is, whoever's doing the bullying just thinks, ha ha, what a joke. I can totally
Yeah.
get away with this. And
Yep.
that's really, pathetic when you think about it. Like,
And I
um,
know I know
it's
myself
not
when
okay.
my kids were in school, I said, we're going to have a conversation and I better never have to talk about this again. And I know my oldest grandson, with him being in school, my daughter actually had a conversation with him and she's like, I'm going to tell you one time, we don't pick on anybody. We don't call anybody names. I mean, she went right down through. She goes, and if we have to have this conversation again, we're going to have problems. And he's like, I've never done nothing. I've never done nothing. And she's like, I'm telling you, because if anything, that way nothing ever is done. And if it is, your ass is grass, and there's a lot of people like, oh, you shouldn't have that conversation with your kids. Yes, you should. You should let your kids
You
know that
should.
it's not okay. And I do
That's
like the
right.
fact, like when my daughter said, we better never have this conversation again or there's going to be a problem. She's letting him know
Hmm.
that no, it's not okay to treat people like this. So we don't act like this. And hopefully
That's
he
right.
carries that with him through his life and he teaches his kids the same thing, because there's so many
That's right.
kids being bullied and taking their own lives. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It is really has to do with parenting. That's how you brought up your children. So now your daughter and your son are doing the same thing with their children.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's like you're not a there's no it's not abuse. It's just caring enough to bring up your children properly. So, and saying the hard things that need to be said, you
Yeah.
know, because those kids, those little bullies out there, not all of them, but a percentage of them will end up going on to think that they can push anybody around. And they
Mm-hmm.
are going to find out the hard way as they start
Yes.
trying to push cops around that that don't fly, and they're going to end up the prison system is going to then be their teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and
And that's
for the rest,
sad.
however long, right?
That's sad.
And it's really sad, but that's mostly the case. And the sad thing is that, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not running parents down. I'm not saying, I'm not running anybody down. I'm just saying it literally is up to the parents. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Parents have to care. And people say, well, I mean, there's no perfect system. Sometimes there's really good parents, and they do the best job they can. They really do try. And then there's some kids that just go their own way, and that's a fact.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen it with my own eyes.
Oh
But then
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a
Same.
lot of times there's some situations with horrible parents that don't give a shit about their kids,
Mm-mm.
and the kids, where are they going to get the information from? Usually from some of their friends on the street,
Mm-hmm.
because that's their friends. That's the gang that's going to become their family, and it's going to be not the information they really need. And they start out. That's a bad way to start, but they don't always stay bad. They can go good as well, right? I've seen
Mm-hmm.
that myself. That's my case. You know what I
Well,
mean? It could have ended up really bad for me, but
yeah.
sort of God
I
saw me through. Thank God.
Yeah. I proposed a question to my oldest grandson the other day. I said to him, I said, "What do you do if you see a kid at school being bullied?" He said, "I go over and I interrupt." And I said, "Well, what do you mean you go over and you interrupt?" And he goes, "I go over and I interrupt and I let the bully know that that's not cool." And I said, "Okay." I
Mm,
said, "Well, what then if the bully starts picking on you?" He goes, "Well, I
that's
just hit
cute.
speed dial and call my baseball team." Because his baseball team, they're like a group. And if you're picking on one, you're picking on
Yeah.
all of them. He goes, "Trust me, there ain't no bullying going on." He says, "On my when my team's around." I said, "But I think
Yeah,
that
that's
that's
awesome.
stick up for each other. I really do, because there's some
That's
kids
really
that
cool.
need it, you know." So,
Absolutely. That's the thing, like all the kids in the hallway, because, I remember in high school, there was, because I was not one of the cool kids, well, not at all. I was actually one of the weird kids that just
no,
basically hung by myself.
no, you weren't.
There was a few in high school. Oh yeah, there was a few
I can't
people
picture you being
that
the
liked
weird
me.
kid.
Well, I was like the stoner, just out drinking on the way to class. You know what I mean? Like I was just one of them kids. People like this one girl would bring me for some reason. I don't even know why, because I didn't ask her for it. Would bring me alcohol on the way to that class all the time. So I'd be in that class laughing my ass off, and the teacher would be getting mad. She'd be like, "You keep this up, man, you're going to be out of this class real quick." And I'm like, okay.
I can't even
Yeah, I was
picture
just,
you.
high all the time. But
I've known
I
you.
did manage to do quite well.
I've known you all these years, and I would never imagine seeing you doing that.
Well,
I
like I
can't
said, I was a bit of
even.
a rebel. Yeah. Um, everybody was getting stoned in those days at school, so it was no big deal. But if you got in trouble, you'd be in trouble for sure. They didn't want kids doing that, obviously. But so if you got busted with weed or anything like that, you'd be in trouble. But everybody's doing it anyway, so who cares? But
Well,
no, I kind of I sort of stuck by myself. But there was a few kids that I hung out with, and they were kind of the nerds. And it's funny, and to be honest with you, they were seriously. That's what everybody, if you took the Breakfast Club situation, I was like that Bender guy, the thug, and these friends of mine were the nerdy guy, the science guy, the scientific guy, and the one that was always studying and behaving
mhm.
properly and eating his food and behaving himself. So these friends kind of picked me up, and they liked me for some reason, and I couldn't figure it out why. But throughout high school, they were my friends, which I thought I was really glad to have them, because I didn't have, my friend was in a different grade than I was, Arlene, and she was 1 year ahead of me, and we never had any of the same classes because she was 1 year ahead of me. So these other girls would, I had classes with them, so we would hang out. It was really cool. Yeah. But they used to just laugh. I think they thought I was funny because I was always stoned and always just acting stupid.
I
And
can't
I
picture
think they
you.
just like,
They probably
yeah.
like,
I
you're nice, you're cool, you're fun.
Well, I think I've always respected people and not run people down. I think those
Mhm.
people, because they were kind of like nobody's in the high school situation, like they weren't the popular kids in the hall, the jocks and the cheerleaders. They weren't the social elite in the school. They were just average students. They were just your average kids, you know what I mean? So I think that
Mhm.
we related with each other because none of us was part of that scene. And
Mhm.
so we understood each other, and it's kind of like we just hung out. Yeah, they were cool. I really liked them. One of them's actually still my friend today. She looked me up,
Oh,
which
that's
is really
nice.
cool.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's really really cool.
I remember
So
being
yeah,
in
it's like,
I remember being in elementary school, and at that time we didn't have middle school. We had elementary school and we had high school. And I can remember being in elementary
oh yeah,
school up to 6th grade, and like 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, like all the girls hung out. We were all real cool friends, you know. And at the end of the 6th grade, before we went to high school, there was a group of us girls. We did a routine to Cool in the Gang's song Celebration. And it was like,
oh
we were
cool.
getting ready to go to high school, and it was like we were going to be the it girls. We were the popular girls, you know, and we were like up to that point. And then I remember getting in 7th grade, and I was so quiet and bashful because it was so new. I didn't know anybody over there, and I got like real quiet for, I'm going to say 2, maybe 3 years. And then I remember hitting the end of 9th grade year to the beginning of 10th grade year, and I wasn't as loud as I am now. I didn't have the voice I have now, but like I was more, I would say things or laugh or joke. And I can remember this one girl, she said to me, she goes, she sat in front of me and she goes, Donna, your hair looks nice today. And this girl didn't like me. And I said, thank you. And I thought, wow, you know, it's almost the end of senior year. She's finally coming around. She's going to be normal, you know? And she goes, well, what did you do different to it? And I said, I don't know, because it looks the same way every single day, you know? And like, I'm trying to like not, she said something and I can remember, I'm like, you girl. And to this day, this girl, she hates me. And I can remember my mom said, so what'd you say to the girl? And I said, oh, I just said I didn't like her. And she goes, no, what did you say? I said, well, I might have said the F word. And she's like, I don't want to hear you saying that anymore. But I'm glad you stood up for yourself, she said. But it was weird because like
Yeah,
in our school, especially being small, we had cliques. Like we had the cliques where the people thought they were better
yeah.
than everybody. Then we had another clique, and I didn't fit with
Oh,
any clique. I kind of got along with everybody except this one particular girl. And um, probably a year ago, she sent me a friend request on Facebook. And Logan, which is one of Lee's twin nieces, she says, hey, Donna, she's like, you got a friend request from this girl. And I'm like, hit delete. So 4 separate times she hit delete, and the girl kept, you know, wanting a friend request. So finally I said, add her. Let's just see what she wants. Well, all of a sudden, we were such good friends in school, and can't we be good friends now? And it's like, girl, you didn't freaking know me in school, and I don't want to know you now.
hmm.
Sorry, you know, but I'm like, I
No,
remember
because
that
people don't change
so
that much. They really don't.
no. And I remember that so well. And I thought, the one time I thought maybe you were going to be nice and change your evil ways, you tried to be rude to me. But I can still remember
Hmm.
my mom saying, so what'd you say to her? And I said, oh, I just said, and she's like, no, what did you say? And I'm like, Mom, I didn't say nothing. I said, I just told her to leave me alone. She's like, what did you say? I says, well, I might have said you. My mom's like, I'm glad you stood up for yourself. I don't want you saying that anymore. And my mom was like strict. I had a strict mom. One of the reasons why I wasn't so popular with the it crowd, I'll say like that, when I was in school, was because my mom was very strict. I wasn't allowed to date people. And I graduated, I was 16 years old, so that's part of the reason. But like I wasn't
Hmm.
allowed to date, I wasn't allowed to go to parties, and I went to school dances, but of course, being young, we had someone take us and somebody pick us up. But my mom was
Yeah.
very, very strict.
Good
And
though.
but a lot of people, they didn't like me because my mom's strict. And I look back today, and matter of fact, at work today, I said to Barb, I said, "Do you recognize this girl?" And she goes, "Oh, I heard the name before, but I don't know who she is." I said, "I went to school with this girl, and she was 2 years ahead of me in school. And she used to act like she was better than everybody, and she put people down, and like she was so ignorant and so rude. And there she is, a druggie. She's a meth head. She broke in a
Yeah.
house and stole $100, and now she's going back to jail again." And I'm just like,
Right.
you know, maybe I'm glad that
That's sad.
I wasn't in that perfect it crowd then, because like my life is so great and I'm thankful to God that it is. But
Yeah.
it's so weird because you look at these people and it's like, um, someone said on Facebook the other day, they're like, "Wow, well, the elite has fallen." And I said, "I don't think she was ever the elite. I think that people present themselves in a certain way, and they want you to treat them a certain way, or you want them to think they're better than you. And at the end of the day, they're not, because look at her life. I mean, her life went right down the shithole. Like, it's awful."
That's it. That's it. That's
So,
awful. And you don't know what people have gone through in their lifetime. That's the thing. People like high school, kids don't, they're trying to develop who they are. They don't even know, like when they're
Lori,
young, they don't have a clue.
when
They're
when
just
Facebook
trying to learn.
come when Facebook come and like our class is all like, "Oh, we're all best friends. Let's be friends." I don't socialize with one person I graduated with.
Hmm.
Not one. If you put something on Facebook, they might like it or whatever, or happy birthday or a nice comment. I don't socialize with any of them because I'll be honest. We've been at I'm 55, so I've been out of school a long time, and I graduated at 16. So it's like, if you haven't known me in all those
Hmm.
years and now all of a sudden you want to know me, I don't have time for that. You weren't part of my life, and I really don't want
Yeah.
to be a part of yours. You kind of pick the people you're
Yeah.
friends with, you pick the groups that you run with, and it's just like, I don't have time for that. And I know a couple of them said, "Well, we used to be
Yeah.
really good friends in school." And I'm like, "Well, where have you been the last 35 years? Like, where the hell
Yeah.
have you been?" you know?
That's it. Seriously. I mean,
And
um,
there
I
are a
didn't
few.
see any of those people.
No, and there are a few that I really did like. And when I went home last year and they had the big event, Flame and Foliage, and when I went home and I went to that, I ran into different people that I graduated with. And they introduced me. It was mostly the guys, because I always got along better with guys than girls. They introduced me to their wife and their families. And I thought that was really, it was nice. But in the same sense,
That
it's
is,
like, we haven't been friends in so many years. Like, I have no connection with these people. You know what I mean? Like, just no connections.
that's just it. And it's kind of like, it's like that one friend of mine that contacted me from high school. We were actually pretty close, and so
Hmm.
it really was great for her to get a hold of me, which was really bizarre because there's so many people with my name. If you try to Google my name, good luck,
Hmm.
because there's a bunch of me everywhere. Um,
There is.
Now her name is way different. So her name is like, it would have been a little bit easier for me to find her, but not 100%, because her name is not all that uncommon. It's not
Hmm.
common, but it's not all that uncommon. Whereas mine's really common. I couldn't believe she found me. I told her, I said, "That's a miracle that you even found me." She goes, "You wouldn't believe how long I've been looking." I was like,
Where's
"I
the
believe
love?
you, because seriously, there's a lot of Lorianne Smiths." But
There is.
she's a super super nice lady. And I really liked her. And we didn't even really talk a lot in high school. We didn't have all these deep conversations or anything like that, but we had this understanding between us, which was really weird. It's like she's Native American. I think she's Navajo, if I'm
Oh, wow.
correct. She might be Hopi, or I always thought she was Navajo. I could be wrong, but beautiful, beautiful girl, and just a beautiful person. And super, super down to earth, but very shy. And she really didn't say much like the whole time we were in high school. The loudmouth was me. You know what I mean? It was me
I can't even imagine.
uh, yeah, like Stephanie's pretty quiet. There was four of us. Anna Chrysikos was from Greece, and she just used to make us laugh. She was beautiful. She looked like one of them Greek women, with the curly, like dark hair, and I mean, beautiful face, beautiful features. If you've ever seen a statue of a Greek woman,
Uh-huh.
even a painting of a Greek woman, absolutely beautiful, beautiful girl, and she was just fabulously gorgeous. And she was kind of funny. She used to make us laugh and stuff. She would say some funny stuff. But I think, we just used to laugh, and it's pretty much because they were laughing at me because I was stoned all the time, like I said. So I think they thought I was funny. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't think I was that funny, but
As
yeah,
much as you say it, I can't picture you being a
they weren't
stoner.
stoners. I was, yeah.
But I can't picture you being a stoner. You don't.
Oh man, I was
don't look like you would have been.
Well, yeah, I mean, I started smoking pot when I was young, like 12, and I mean, pot was no big deal. I always swore I would never be a drug user, and it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. I was just trying to escape, and it was available. All these drugs were around, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, okay, I'm going to do them. I'll be somebody else. So it was a way for me to escape. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of people say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could be somebody different. I did. So the person that I was at home, having to deal with what I was going through at home, I didn't have to be that person outside of my home. I could be somebody else. So that helped me to do that. It was
I hear that a lot.
Putting on a mask.
I hear that a lot from people that like the drugs help them escape, or even getting high. It just helps them. It helps them escape, the past or what they've been through. Or
yeah. Well, I mean, because I was still living in this abusive home in high school. I mean, like my parents were fighting all the time, and it wasn't pleasant. It was just like, just the animosity, just the anger in the home. The frustration between my parents. So drugs was a great option. It was kind of like, yeah, okay, this helps me to deal. I did get off of them, thankfully, at a decent age, like 20, 21, 22. I was like, I think around the end, like heading towards 22 is literally when I made the decision. I'm like, that's it. I'm done with this. I knew that I was going to end up either in prison or in the gutter, dead or something. I'm like, no, I've got to straighten up my life. So that was a wise decision. Absolutely.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sad. I had, I mean, like I said, all my friends that I was hanging around with, I loved them very much. And I could not hang around with them anymore because I knew that I could not say no. It's like an alcoholic hanging around with people who are going to the bar. Is it such a good idea? Not really. You have to separate yourself from that if you can't say no. And I knew they were going to be passing around the drugs, the cocaine, everything else. It was going to be flowing around. And I'm like, can I say no? I don't think so. I'm going to be doing it. So I had to cut them off, unfortunately. I spent a year isolated. Yeah, is what I did. I just isolated myself for a year.
I only had one real friend that I stuck by with after high school, and she was actually my cousin. Her name was Sherry, and she's the one that died in a fire, probably, I'm going to say 15 years ago.
That's sad.
And her and I, we were always, as kids, we were next door neighbors. And then when we both grew up, got married, we bought our house, and then she bought a house basically right next to ours, but down further. Because you know how ours is, we're separated from a lot of people. Well, you'd have to drive so far, and then you would get to her place. And she would walk to my house, I'd walk to her house, the kids would all play together and stuff like that. And then she got really heavily involved in drugs, and her daughter got taken from her. And I was heartbroken for her. And then she just
Yeah, that's
started
awful.
cleaning her life up, and she was getting back into a really good place. And then there was the fire, and she died in the fire, her and her fiance.
That's sad.
So
Yeah,
it is. And,
that is sad.
I think of her a lot, and I think of like some of the things that we've been through together and all the fun we had. And I can remember even being kids and we would argue or fight over something stupid. But like she was the one person, she was the one person that was always like there, there for me throughout the whole school and everything. And it was just the reason why a lot of people say, well, how did you graduate so early? Back in those days, I was 4, and when my mom enrolled me in school, and you could take a test to see if you could go
Yeah,
to
me too.
kindergarten or first grade. And I took the
Yeah.
test, and they said I could go to first grade if I wanted to. Well, Sherry was in first grade, so I wanted to be in first grade with her. So that was the reason why I actually graduated early. But
Yeah.
I miss her. I miss her every day. And the bad part about it was before she passed away, I hadn't seen her in a couple months. And the day before she died, she was in the store with her mom and my aunt. And we ran into each other and we talked and everything. And we made plans that we were going to, get together and do things. And before she left, she goes, "I love you." And I said, "I love you too." And we gave each other a big hug and we promised we were going to see each other. The next day she died in a house fire.
Yeah.
So
that's sad.
And
that's just tragic. I'm really sorry.
It is,
that's
because
terrible.
I look at her and I think things were good, and then things were really bad for you, and then things were really getting good. And just when things were getting good and you were taking your life back, you were lost tragically in a fire. And it's heartbreaking. And I don't know.
Yeah,
I
that
think
is.
often, every year after she passed away, I wrote this thing and they put it in the newspaper. And every year the newspaper runs the article just because I guess it was so sentimental and it meant so much. So they run it
That's
every
cool.
year. But I
That's
don't know.
awesome.
I think
Memorial.
of her a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think of her a lot, and I miss her. I really do miss her because we were close.
Yeah. That's really sad. Yeah. It's tragic. And that's the thing, right? I mean, drugs can affect anybody. It can happen to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
People say,
Oh
"Oh,
my
it never
God.
happened to me." You don't
When
know.
we were
Right?
kids, we didn't even know what the hell drugs were. Like we didn't know what drugs were. We grew up so naive to so many different things. I would hear someone say, one time we were going to a school dance, and this one kid, teenager, boy, whatever you want to call him, he said, "Hey Donna, you want to go smoke a joint?" And I'm like, "No, thank you." And I can remember going over and saying to my friends, "Oh my God, I don't even know what that is. What does he want?" Because I was bad. And they're like, "Oh, he wants you to smoke some
What's he even
weed." And I'm
talking
like,
about?
yeah, like I didn't know. But we were
Yeah.
so naive to things because my mom was always like, she protected us from certain things. And like, I really did not
Well, that's good.
know. And it was kind of crazy. But then just like with her, she
That's good.
really, Sherry really didn't have any more knowledge to things than I did. And it was just really weird when she got with somebody and he was into drugs and then she picked up the drugs. It was so sad. It was so sad. But I think about her every day and I miss her. I love her.
Yeah. It is sad. Definitely. Yeah. That's really tragic. And that's the thing. I mean, it's a sad situation. That's good that your mom kept you away from all that stuff. It's
My mom
like
was my mom was
I grew up
strict.
around drugs. Like my mom and dad allowed it.
Yeah. See, my mom was
Like my
strict.
brothers were always smoking.
Yeah. My mom didn't let us go with people. She didn't let us spend a night at anybody's houses. Um, I mean, you would come home and you would ask her something and she would answer you, but she would answer you in a roundabout way. You still didn't know what the hell she was talking about. And I know when I had my kids, I shielded my kids and I protected them like crazy. But in the same sense, I
Yeah.
let them know what things were, because I think we live in a time when things are really different compared to when I was a kid. And then even the
Yes.
kids
Definitely.
now, my children, they're raising them different than I've even raised them. And it's like, you can't raise children like we were raised, because there's so many things they need to know that they need to be protected with. So,
Yeah,
and I worry,
absolutely, absolutely.
about them every single day, you know, but I know that, just like I said, my son and daughter and their spouses, they're doing the right thing. They're teaching them right from wrong. But I think back to my own
Yep,
childhood,
right.
and I think I didn't even know what the hell weed was. When someone said, "You want to smoke a joint?" I'm like, no. And then I go over and I'm like,
That's fun.
Chris, Lovey, what is this? And they're like, oh, he just wants you to get high. And I'm like, oh my God. You know,
Yeah.
but back then
Well,
I really didn't know it. Like I said, we were really
no,
sheltered.
no. I mean, and I grew up in I was born in '65, and that was like the hippie movement was just starting and down. I mean, it was just getting going. And my brothers were at that age. That my older brothers were at that hippie age, and so I mean, by '69, I was 4, and my brothers were sitting there passing the joints and getting me stoned. So I was like 4 years old getting stoned.
Holy shit. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
they'd be
I
like,
don't mean to
they
laugh.
just
I don't. But when you said it
no,
was funny.
seriously, it's not okay. You don't do that. Like, but they weren't thinking
No.
about it. Like, they weren't thinking, oh, this is no big deal. The issue is they were doing a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like one of my brothers mainly was a pill popper, and he would pop anything he could get his hands on. He took pills, so that was his thing. My other brother was a heroin addict and a junkie and a cocaine user, and but they all smoked pot. My mom allowed this around the house. So seriously, there was drugs around. My brother one time ripped off somebody from a big bag of a huge garbage bag full of weed, a big huge garbage bag full of pot,
Oh
and
wow.
with yeah, I mean it was massive, and put it in the closet. And my mom, you could smell it. I mean, it was like permeating the house, right? And my mom was like, you got to get this out of here. Those people are going to come looking for this. They're going to shoot us. They're going to blow out our windows or something. You need to get this out of the house. Told my brother to take it out. And, just the insanity that I grew up in. And I always swore I would never do drugs. It was I was like, I'm not doing drugs. I'm not going to be like my brothers. And at the age of 12, I was like, it looks pretty good. I'm definitely going to go for it. And a lot of my friends were doing drugs. So I didn't pass that on to them. They were already doing drugs. I had friends who were a couple years older than me who were already experimenting in drugs. So it was the natural course of my life to be involved in drugs. I could have said no. When I was 11, I would have said no. But by the time I hit 12 and somebody offered me a joint, I'm like, to smoke a joint, I'm like, sure. You know what I mean? And before I know it, I'm doing all kinds of shit. So I started really experimenting with all sorts of stuff. I would not want my kids doing that. No.
No.
And I do, in a way, put partial blame on my parents because my parents, what their whole thing was like, well, if we let them do it around the house, then they won't be doing it on the street. So my parents enabled our parents were abusers, but in all of
Yeah.
this abuse and everything, they allowed my siblings to do drugs around the house, which is not cool. And the thing is their reasoning was, well, at least they're doing them at home, they're not doing them on the street. But what that was doing was
Friends
enabling
though.
my brother to be a terrible drug addict who he never could hold a job. My brother was 7 years older than me, literally had brain damage from all these drugs. He used to go into comas, and like he would overdose and almost died. Would end up in comas. Had brain damage. Um, Basically useless in society. Totally, you know what I mean. And my
Mm-hmm.
other brother was a junkie and a cocaine user, and he committed suicide at the age of 33. And there's my parents sitting there going, we don't know why all this happened. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'll tell you why. How about I'll tell you why? Because I've been recording it all up here, and I'm going to put
Mm-hmm.
it on paper. So I ended up writing books about it. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
you cannot, parents, they think it's all fun and games. My
Mm-hmm.
friend, her mother, okay, just, I don't name names, so nobody's going to know who this is. Her mother was a sheriff smoking pot all the time. So I'm over at my friend's house, that my friend who's in the picture of the book, and all we do is get stoned all day long, seriously, and drink and do whatever kind of drugs we can get our hands on, and just party it up. Her mom's a sheriff, and her mom smoked pot. That's where my friend's getting a lot of this pot from, is her mom. And you can't let your kids do this shit. You know what I mean? And think that that's okay, because if you're enabling your children to be drug users, you're enabling your children to be criminally. Okay, pot's legal in many places now. It's legal where I'm at right now. So hey, yeah, you're an adult. You're 18 years and older. I think it's 18 or 21. I can't remember, but you have to be a certain age. You can't be a kid going in and buying pot. You know what I mean? Even though they do, but I'm sure they do get their weed. But I'm just saying, we have become a society that says, "Oh, it's okay. Let them do the heroin. No problem." Instead of saying, "No, you got to get off that crap. Do you really want to ruin your life? You're ruining your life." You know what I mean? So years ago, back in the 60s, my parents were doing that. It's how many years later? It's literally 60 years later. Seriously, 60 years later. And now we're a society doing the same thing, even worse, saying, "Here, we'll just give you the drugs and we'll give you the needles. Go ahead and do it." This is insane.
Yeah.
It's not
I
okay.
did have friends that their parents would let them drink. Like, they could drink whatever they wanted at their house. And I can remember like going to a school dance, and I'd say to my mom, "Oh, can I go to so-and-so's house afterwards for, like a party?" And she'd say, "Are the parents going to be there?" And I'd be like, "Well, yeah, that's what they said." And my mom would always be the one to call ahead to see exactly what was going to happen. And she come back and she's like, "No, you can't go to this party." And I'm like, "Why?" And she says, "Because they're going to be drinking." And I'm like, "But I'm not going to drink." And she said, "Nope, you're not going." The parents would actually let their kids, like, drink alcohol. And it's like, okay. But like I said, my mom never did that. She was always very strict. I remember my brother one time, he told my mom a lie, and he went to a party. He was supposed to be at a friend's, and he went to a party. My mom My mom drove out to this party. She went over, tapped him on the shoulder, and she goes, "Get the hell in the car right now." And he's like, "What are you doing here? How did I get here?" And she's, "Get the hell in the car," she said. He came home and he had all these excuses. He didn't know how he got there. And she's like, "Someone better start telling the truth," she said, "or someone's done." And he's like, "What is she really going to do to me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, she will whoop your ass, buddy," because my mom didn't play.
Yeah.
My dad worked away.
Yeah, my mom didn't play either, man.
Yeah, my dad worked away on the railroad when we were kids, ever since we were little kids. And he just retired, I think it was like 15 years ago. So he always had worked away. He worked in Philadelphia. He would come home Friday, Saturday, and he would leave on a Sunday night. So all week long, my brother, he always thought, "Oh, I can get away with whatever because it's just mom. Mom ain't going to know." Well, the first time that he thought he was getting away with something, my mom tapped him. It was so funny.
Mom's not stupid.
I can see her getting out of that car, walking over and tapping on his shoulder. And I can see the look in his face when he turned around, and there it was our mom.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Get the hell in the car," she said.
Oh, yeah. It's always bad when you get busted doing something like that. Oh, totally. My friend and I got busted doing something like that.
He played stupid, though, because he's like, "Where am I? How did I get here?"
I think that's really funny. Your mom's like, "Get in the car."
Yeah, my mom
parents know, because kids are, they at the time they think, "I've got to be able to come up with something." You know what I mean? And the parents are just like, "Look, I was your age once too, buddy. I already know what kind of game you're trying to play with me, and get in the car."
And my
that
kids
is hilarious.
They would they'd say, "Can I go to a party?" And I'd say, "Is there going to be any booze or drugs?" "I don't think so." And I'd say, "Well, if you don't think so, then I don't think that you can go, but one
Yeah.
good thing with both my kids is I knew my son was best friends with the doctor and his wife, and I knew that they didn't let their kid do anything more than I did. And then my daughter, she
Mhm.
had a really good friend, and I knew her dad was in the military and her mom worked for a lawyer's office. And I knew that they didn't let her do anything. So it was kind of nice because we both had the same set of rules. Like we didn't let them do a lot of things. But I can remember different times they'd say, "Can we go to this party?" And I'd say, "Any drugs, any alcohol?" "I don't know." "Then I don't know if you can go," I would say, but
Yeah.
it's funny because we look back now and they're
Right.
like, "Thank you for not letting me be an asshole." And it's like, well, at that
Right.
point in time, and I can remember one time I told my daughter she couldn't go somewhere and she's like, "I hate you." And I said, "Well, you got to start with somebody, so you might as well hate me first," and it's like, she goes, "Where did
That's
you get
right.
that?" She goes, "Where did you get that?" And I said, "Because my mom used to say that to me. You got to hate someone, so you might as well start with me." But
Yeah. That's
I
the
don't
thing.
know.
I mean, there is such a thing as, loving your children and loving them enough to say no.
I love my
You
kids
know what I
enough to say
mean?
no. I love my grandkids
Like,
enough to say no.
it's so important. Like, people don't even realize, like, and and how can you expect that your kids aren't going to do drugs if you're doing drugs around the house? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, if anybody's listening to this, because I know that Donna doesn't do drugs, but I'm just saying, there's got to be
Donna's
people out there.
boring.
I know there's a ton. No, you're smart, and that's just the issue. It's not funny that people are out there doing drugs. And I
Oh
mean, where I
no.
live, downtown Calgary, right out my door is literally right out my window here, just right up here. I can look down at any given time, and I can see 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds. You know, all sorts of different, youth, women, female, male, drug addicts
Yeah.
who many of them aren't going to make it probably for the next 6 months. How many of them will be alive? Nobody knows because they're playing Russian roulette with their bodies, you know what I mean? And with their minds. So,
Well,
you know, it's sad because every single one of them kids has a parent somewhere.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
every single one of them kids has a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, possibly a brother or a sister,
That's
or
sad.
somebody, a cousin somewhere that actually loves them but can't help them because they're so deep in their addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm talking about drug use, I may laugh about it just because the stupidity of it and the fact that seriously, I was really struggling as a young person and nobody cared enough to say no. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like I had to finally care about myself enough to say no, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, these kids out here, I'm sure somebody loves them somewhere, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
not because not every child has somebody that cares about them. Not every person has somebody that cares about them. So when
No.
your parents, so if you're a young person and you're listening to this and your parents say no, be glad that they said
Be glad
no,
they say no.
because you got to be glad that they care enough about you that they don't want to see anything horrible happen to you. And that's just it right there. You know what I mean? And if you're an
Mhm.
older person and you're taking offense to what I'm saying, too bad. You know what I mean? I've
I
watched adults screw with their
Yeah.
children's lives and then expect that they're going to come out all right. It's like, really? You think that that's going to happen? Chances are no. You know what I mean? So seriously, I mean, people, you have to think
Well,
about what you're doing when you're bringing up your
I
children.
I know people to this day that they still get high and stuff like that, and they'll always say, "You're boring, you're boring." I'm okay with being boring. That doesn't
Yeah,
affect me. That's why
seriously.
when you said that, I started laughing. I'm like, "I'm boring." I had a doctor's appointment the other day, and I had to start taking a pill. And I fought this doctor for 2 years. I didn't want to take this pill, and she's like, "You have to." And I'm like, "Okay." And she goes, "Also, one other thing." And I said, "What's that?" She goes, "I want you to cut back on the Pepsi." I'm like, "Look, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, and I don't drink, but I'll be damned, I'm not giving up my Pepsi." And she goes,
I
"You have
don't
to give
do
up some
drugs.
Pepsi." And I'm like, I don't drink that much. And she's like,
Oh,
Donna, you
that's
drink
hard.
8 bottles of Pepsi a day. She goes, you got to give some Pepsi up. And I remember I come home and the first thing I said was, she wants me to give up Pepsi. And well, did she tell you to, get rid of it entirely? And I'm like, no, but she told me I can't have my 8 bottles a day. My mom's like, do you really need 8 bottles a day? I'm like, Mom.
Seriously, but hey, you're not a drug user, and you're not. The thing is,
No.
I mean, well, everybody's got their thing, but
Well,
I'm
it
just
was because
saying,
of the sugar.
no, there's,
It was because of the
yeah,
sugar
that's it.
because
I've been told that I have to cut my sugar down too.
yeah,
Yeah,
my
and
my
that's the thing.
grandma's diabetic and my sugar was high the last couple times. So they're like, we're gonna take, nip this in the butt. She's like, but you cannot be drinking. And
Right?
I'm like, I can't give up my Pepsi.
Yeah,
But
that's
I'm gonna
funny.
I
That's
am gonna
funny.
try to cut back a little bit. And she told me, she's like, don't go
Yeah,
cold turkey. Like take one away a day and do that for a week. And then
yeah,
go another week and take
yeah.
another
That's
one.
right. Just a little, like cut back a little bit by little bit, right? Not all
Yeah.
at once, because that's
And
too
then she
much.
said, she's like,
It's
I'm
like
not
anything
saying
you're trying
you
to
can't
do.
have it. She goes, I'm just saying you can't have as much as you are. And I'm like, but I can remember saying to her over there, I'm like, look, I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I'm like, I'll be damned. I'm not giving up my Pepsi. And she's like, yes, you are.
That is so funny. That's seriously. That's what I always tell them. I'm like, look, I don't do drugs. I mean, yeah,
No.
okay, I use nicotine, but I mean, yeah, I don't drink. I don't,
Did you,
I mean, I
when you
drink
go to the
coffee.
doctor and they take your intake, every time they're like, do you do any drugs? No. Do you do illegal drugs? No. They ask you like 4 different times. And the one lady, she's like, we're going to review your blood work when we come back in. And I'm like, okay. And they do cholesterol and they do all these different
Yeah.
functions, kidney functions and all that. And she'll come back in and she'll say, all your stuff looks great. And I'll say, thank you. But my sugar has been high the last couple times. But I'm like, okay, I'll give up a little bit of Pepsi.
If I have to, that sucks.
I have to.
I had to cut down on my coffee. I can't drink a pot of coffee anymore. I'm not allowed to. They actually told me, they said, because the doctor was like, well, I said, I can't sleep. I don't know why I can't sleep. I was
That's
talking to my
why.
doctor, and he goes, well, how much coffee do you drink? And I said, well, I drink at least a pot a day, like 12 cups or whatever. And he's like,
That's why.
he's like, I said, yeah, I'm drinking coffee till like 11 o'clock at night. And he goes, well, did you ever think that that might actually be part of the problem? Is it decaf or what? I said, no, it's just straight up coffee. He's like, well, he's like, you could just cut back a bit. You could like cut down to a couple cups. You might be all right. I'm like, couple cups? I'm like, who can go with a couple cups of coffee? Not me. I'm like that with my, like, we're the same. It's just I'm drinking coffee with sugar in it. You're drinking Pepsi with sugar in it. We're
Yeah.
exactly the same.
Yeah. But,
8
and then
bottles of Pepsi.
she says to me, she's like, what's the first thing you have in the morning when you wake up? I said, I grab from my Pepsi. She goes, what's the last thing you put down at night before you brush your teeth to go to bed? I said, my Pepsi. And she's like,
That's
do
right.
you ever not have a Pepsi in your hand? I said, probably not. I'd be lying if I said I
No,
didn't.
it's
I'm like, I
funny.
can't
It
help it.
is funny.
But
But you know what
I have,
though? That was a wise choice.
yeah,
If it came to the Pepsi or some sort of drug use or alcohol, you made the better choice. That's all
yeah,
I can say.
yeah.
If that's your weakness and that's the one thing that
Well,
you just can't get rid of, no, that's not such a big deal.
with my little group, a circle of friends that I have here, if we go out and eat or we get together, I always say they can take anything they want from me, but they can't take my booze. And my booze is my Pepsi.
That's right. They're not taking away your drink
I'm
choice,
like,
your
you're not
Pepsi.
taking my booze. Mm-mm.
That's it. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I know, because a lot of people are like, back in the old days, people would be like, when I was younger, they'd be like, let's go for a drink. And I'm like, I really don't drink, And they're like, well, you can get a coffee then. Because I'd be like, really? I said, if we go to the bar, I'm having a coffee. You know what I mean? Because I don't really
Mhm.
drink. I said, but you can drink. I'm not a teetotaler. Like, seriously, I mean, I have a drink once in a while, but I'm just not into it. I really rather have coffee. They were like, well, you can have coffee and I'll have my drink. I'm like, okay, whatever.
That's
So
funny.
it's just funny. I'm a coffeeholic. Yeah. but I had to cut down. I'm down to
Mhm.
a half a pot now, which
Well,
is
that's
a
good.
normal pot is like 10 to 12 cups, the big pots. And but my cup is actually 2 cups. See? Look at this thing.
Yeah,
Look at this. This mug is huge, right?
it
So
is.
that literally probably is a 2 cup mug. So for my coffee pot, two of those is about a half. Two of these is a half a pot. Seriously, and that's about what I have per day. I'm still drinking, but my doctor didn't know the size of my mug. I told him I was having 2 cups of coffee, but this
You
this
didn't
is
tell them
this
how
is
big
actually
it
like
is.
I'm having 4 cups of coffee actually. So, but I am sleeping better since I've cut down.
Good,
My sugars are dropping. So, yeah, I
good.
mean, it's these small changes, little changes, right?
Mhm.
Well, did we want to end it and come back for part two?
Yep. I need to grab a
Break.
drink.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna say goodbye for now. Come back for part two because if you want to say hello, if you're just kind of hanging out in the background, pop in and say hello in the chat because we love to hear from people. If you have something you want to talk about or whatever, just pop it in there. If you have a
Mhm.
question for us, whatever. We may or may not answer it depending on how we feel about it. But yeah, thanks for being here and for everybody who's listening on, like on Spotify and iHeartRadio and all over the place. Thank you very much. We appreciate your support. We're a new channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you like what we're doing, you like us, and you want to support us, share us out. We're new, so it's hard to get a following. But if you like us and you want to help us out, be sure and do that for us. That'd be great. So we'll see you for part two here in just about a half an hour. We're half an hour behind, so we're gonna be a little bit late. So we'll talk to you in 30 minutes for part two.
See you soon.
See you in a bit, Donna. That's right.